Good evening and welcome to the City of Oxnard Planning Commission for Thursday, October 19, 2023. The meeting will come to order at 6:01 p.m. The public may view the meeting from home on the city's website, Spectrum Channel 10, Frontier Channel 35, or on the city's YouTube website. To participate in the meeting, the public may provide comments to the Planning Commission via email at planning@oxnard.org no later than 3 p.m. on the day of the meeting or through the city's website at oxnard.org/city-meetings or call the Planning Division office. Additionally, those wishing to speak can dial the phone number listed at the bottom of the screen, follow the instructions to access the meeting, and press star 9 to raise your hand indicating your intention to speak on the agenda item being discussed. Madam Secretary, can we please have the roll call?
Chair Arejo.
Present.
Vice Chair Dr. Stewart.
Present.
Commissioner Chavez.
Here.
Commissioner Dr. Lopez.
Here.
Commissioner Nash.
Present.
Commissioner Sealsdorf.
Present.
Commissioner Connolly is absent, and we have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. We will now move on to the Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Chavez, will you kindly lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Join me in saluting the flag of our nation by repeating, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Chavez. The next agenda item is Section C, public comments on items not on the agenda. At this time, a person may address the Planning Commission on matters within the jurisdiction of the Planning Commission, including information, consent items, and any time not appearing on the agenda. The Planning Commission cannot take action on any item presented during public comments that is not on the agenda, and such item may only be referred to the Commission Secretary. Persons wishing to speak on public hearing items should do so at the time of the public hearing. Madam Secretary, are there any public comments for items not on the agenda?
We did have one person sign up online.
Thank you. And I do see that. Ms. Severe, S-E-V-E-R-E, if you could please make yourself known either in the council chambers or on the phone. Press star 9 to raise your hand so we know you're here, or star 6 to unmute yourself.
I don't believe they're present.
Okay, thank you, Madam Secretary. We'll go on to the consent agenda. With none listed, we'll move to ex parte declarations for public hearing items. Section E, please state any ex parte declarations, if any. I'll go across the dais. Commissioner Dr. Lopez.
None, thank you.
Commissioner Chavez.
None, thank you.
Vice Chair Dr. Stewart.
None, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Nash.
None, thank you.
Commissioner Sealsdorf.
None, thank you.
Thank you. And for myself, I did attend the site earlier today handled by the appellant applicant team and will be able to conduct my decision-making in an unbiased manner at the upcoming public hearing. Thank you all. The next item on the agenda is Section F, public hearing. Okay. Project name, appeal of the 1215 Capri Way Amendment, Planning and Zoning Permit number 23-400-01, Coastal Development Permit located at 1215 Capri Way, appeal of the Community Development Director's decision to deny a request for a Coastal Development Permit amendment in order to remove the condition that prohibits a rooftop spa and allow for the placement of a spa on the existing roof deck of a beachfront single-family residence. The project site is a 5,284 square foot beachfront home within the Oxnard Shores neighborhood in the beachfront residential zoning district and the coastal zone. The proposed project is exempt from environmental review pursuant to CEQA guidelines section 15-270, projects which are disapproved of CEQA, filed by property owner Ben and Michelle Mandelbaum, city staff Ms. Serena Gonzalez, assistant planner. At this time, per Measure M, a staff presentation has been pre-recorded and the link has been posted to YouTube. At this time, does staff want to provide a summary or additional analysis at this time?
Hello, Chair Reho and Commissioners. Staff would like to give a brief presentation, given that this project has been going on for some time. So just to kind of give a little bit of history of how we got here to today. So if we could bring up the supplemental presentation. Thank you. So we are here today for an appeal of the director's decision. The appeal, again, is to reverse the Community Development Director's decision to deny the request for a coastal development permit amendment, which was to remove a condition that was on a project that prohibited a rooftop spa, but it did allow for the placement of the spa on the deck, on the front side of the deck. The ground of the appeal, the reason that the appeal is being filed is that the appellant believes that the approval was fully supported by the Community Development Director staff report, which was presented to the director on August 24th. The staff report did recommend approval, so staff's original recommendation on this project was to approve it. However, staff is only a recommending body to the Community Development Director, so it is the director's final decision as to whether or not a project is approved or not. So a little bit of background. This project was originally approved on October 4th, 2018, which allowed for the construction of a single-family dwelling. That director's decision was appealed to the Planning Commission, who upheld the director's decision on December 6th. A subsequent appeal was made to the California Coastal Commission. However, that appeal was then dropped by the appellant at that time. The grounds for that appeal were related to the placement of the house and due to the height that was being proposed. Again, that appeal was dropped, so then the project was ultimately approved. However, the home was later purchased by another developer. However, that developer, before moving forward with the construction, wanted to make additional changes to the property. So they required an amendment to that prior CDP. At the director's hearing for that amendment to that prior CDP, a neighbor objected to the placement of the rooftop deck as well as the spa. After additional discussion, the neighbor that objected to the rooftop spa came to an agreement with the developer to add 2 conditions to avoid an appeal of that project, which would have ultimately come to the Planning Commission. Those 2 conditions are the one that is being requested to be removed today, which proposed that the hot tub not be allowed on the rooftop, but would allow for it to be located on the first floor deck on the ocean side, as long as it was architecturally compatible with the structure. And when the plans came in for building permits, the rooftop spa was not shown on the building permit plans. However, they did not place it on the front deck. So the developer at the time determined that they were not going to move forward with it on the front deck. However, it was allowed to go there. And then the second condition was that the deck that was constructed in the balcony railing be opaque or not be able to be seen through. That was the other condition that was added, and the project did ultimately comply with that condition. Again, on May 14th, the director did approve that resolution with the new conditions as accepted and agreed to by the developer at that time. The current applicant or appellant today, that's before you today, subsequently purchased the property and constructed the home with the restriction already in place. On July 18th of last year, during the final inspection, city staff noted that the spa had been installed on the roof and a clear railing had been installed, which was in conflict with those 2 conditions that were previously placed on the project. Staff directed the contractor at the time to remove the spa and apply a opaque film to the railing prior to final sign-off, which the contractor did agree to. Staff then signed off on the home following confirmation that the spa had been removed and that the film had been applied to the deck railing. However, following final sign-off by city staff, the contractor did return the spa to the roof, at which time a code enforcement case was opened on November 14th of 2022. As a result of the code enforcement case, on February 16th of 2023, the applicant did apply for a new coastal development permit to amend the prior permit to remove condition 65, which would allow for the placement of the spa or jacuzzi on the existing rooftop deck. On August 24th, as previously mentioned, the project went to a director's hearing where the project's request was denied by the director. Again, the decision is ultimately up to the director, and the director must be able to make 9 specific findings in order to approve the coastal development permit. The second finding stated that the proposed use would not impair the integrity and character of the subject subzone, which is the RBF, which applies to the, or stands for residential beachfront and applies to all of the beachfront homes along Marine Way, Capri Way, as well as Mandalay Beach Road. And at that time, the director determined that the proposed modification to allow the rooftop deck would impair the integrity of the character and character of the subzone, and thus they were unable to make that finding. And with that, that concludes kind of the background presentation. And again, staff is available if there are any additional questions.
Thank you, Mr. Pearson. If there's no objection from commission, we'll have the applicant/appellant present at this time, if there is any. Does the applicant appellant have a presentation? And if you do, you have 10 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and honorable commissioners. My name is Fred Gaines with the Law Office of Gaines and Stacey. I represent the property owners, Ben and Michelle Mandelbaum. And ultimately tonight, you're going to decide if the one house in the city of Oxnard that has a condition of approval that says they can't have a spa on their rooftop deck is going to remain the one house in the entire city that has a condition of approval that says they can't have a spa on the rooftop deck. I'm going to outline just what some of the technical and legal issues, and then I'm sure what you want to hear is the testimony of the residents and the owners and the participants, and they'll fill in the facts that you need to make your determinations tonight. First of all, in the letter that you received from the complaining neighbor, and I imagine they'll make the argument tonight, they did at the last hearing, they argue that that this was a contract, that there was a private agreement that needs to be enforced. This was a condition of approval that was added to the approval of the house. And the proper way to address or to amend or to change a condition of approval is to make a new application and ask that that condition be removed. So you may hear an argument, this is not a proper form, you can't do this. This is the exact form for doing that. Last night it was another jurisdiction. The restaurant wanted to stay open till midnight instead of 11, which their CUP said they can only stay till 11, and we had a hearing about whether the condition of approval could be changed. That's what we're doing here. One condition of approval out of over 80 on the approval of this house, we're asking for that to be changed. Second, and you heard this in the presentation, the finding that the director made, what was made was a new application. They have to make the 9 findings. She said she couldn't make one finding. And what she found, what she said, the staff, of course, said they could make the finding, recommended to her that all the findings could be made, but she said couldn't make the finding. She said the proposed request to allow for rooftop spa at the front side of the property is generally not consistent with the existing neighborhood character and would be detrimental to the existing RBF subzone character. So you have to find that having this house not be allowed to have a rooftop spa is inconsistent, well, is consistent, I'm getting tongue-tied. You'd have to find that she's correct, that it would be inconsistent with this neighborhood, a neighborhood with rooftop decks and patios and jacuzzis on decks and patios, second floor decks, ground floor, on rooftop, the house right next to us, rooftop deck, that having a condition that says you can't have it is consistent with an entire neighborhood where everyone else can have it, and the code allows it, and it meets all code requirements. it really, there are no facts to support that, and in many respects is nonsensical. But for you to make the decision to not grant this appeal, you have to agree with that finding, that this house is so unique, so different, and if it has a spa, then it's inconsistent with the character of this neighborhood, which you're all familiar with the Oxnard Shores neighborhood. Beautiful homes now, expensive homes, but very close together with decks and patios and windows that you know, on all sides. There's nothing different at all about this house. Then you have to decide, if you get that far, what's the basis of this condition? What impact, you put a condition of approval on a project when there's an impact to mitigate. So when this condition was put on, the house hadn't been built. And the allegation was, they're gonna look into my house, there's gonna be a privacy violation, and there's gonna be noise. Those were the two potential reasons from a mitigation standpoint that would justify putting a condition. The law allows them to have it, so why are you going to take away their right to have it? Well, only if you have to mitigate an impact and you have a legitimate reason to do that. And the staff report went through that in detail. And it talks about, this is the August 24th staff report, talks about the site design and how the site design meets every criteria of section 1746B5 of the coastal zone ordinance in Oxnard. There is nothing on this site in terms of the windows, the location, the privacy aspects that is outside of that. And then it goes on to talk about the noise. The section 7185A goes through that the allowed decibel level is 55. It goes down to 50 at 10 p.m. The spa manufacturer submitted the model with the highest noise being 59 at 1 foot away, not at the boundary, let alone at the 60 feet away that the complaining neighbor is at. And the analysis was done that the decibel rating would be 36.1, well below the 50 at the complying location. So there's no facts to support that there's an impact here that needs to be mitigated, and certainly none different from every other property in the community that doesn't have that restriction. You also have to be aware of equal protection. You got to treat everybody equally. So you got to have a good reason to pick this one property. The complaining neighbor that you'll hear from later, she can have a spa on her rooftop deck. She has a rooftop deck. She could have a spa. They have one next door on one side. They have several on the street. We've provided photos to you of number of them throughout the community. And lastly, we bring to your attention this issue related to the Religious Land Use, RLUPA, the Religious Land Use Act. And you go, God, how could that be? And you'll hear tonight about the Jewish Orthodox religious practice and why this location for the spa, if this family is going to have a spa, what the director had said in making her decision was, well, you could put it on the back at the ground level, meaning on the beach side, or you could put it on a balcony on the second floor outside the bedroom on the beach side. So, but you can't put it on the roof where it's the furthest away. Where actually the rule in this case for this house is the least public place, the most private place to put the spa, you can't put it. You could put it in other places where the public can see it from the beach, where it's open in all those areas, but you can't put it in the most private location. And that doesn't allow this family, that was not in the picture at the time that this was imposed, to utilize the spa. And you'll hear the details of that as to why their religious practice requires that. So those four issues are the legal issues for the context. And then I'm going to ask Mr. Mandelbaum to come up and talk about some of the facts. Thank you so much for your attention.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, and staff, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to address this ongoing predicament. My name is Ben Mandelbaum, and my wife Michelle and I are the homeowners at 1215 Capri Way, and we are here today to respectfully ask for your help to remove an unfair and arbitrary deed restriction on our property. I am mindful, with all the world events happening at this moment, arguing over a spa placement might feel a bit trivial. But this issue is bigger than just a spa. It's about applying the rules fairly and evenly throughout our neighborhood. This is about protecting my family's privacy and religious values. This is about the city reassessing its authority over zoning laws and not piecing together different zoning rules because someone doesn't like an aspect of their neighbor's home. My home bears a unique feature. It's the only home in our neighborhood restricted from having a rooftop patio jacuzzi. This limitation stems from a grievance raised by a single neighbor who continues to employ every available legal avenue to deny us the ability to enjoy our home as we see fit. It came to our attention that the reason for this deed restriction was not because of a public nuisance, not because it's bad for the environment or bad aesthetically. The deed restriction was requested by one neighboring property owner and agreed to by a prior owner of my property based on a pre-construction concern that the spa would be visible from the neighbor's bedroom across the street. However, that's not the case. The spa is not visible from the neighbor's bedroom across the street. No one can tell it's there. It's important to note that the prior owner agreed not to put the spa on the roof because he was under extreme duress. The cost of fighting the neighbor wasn't worth it for him because he planned on selling the property. We are quiet religious people and as such uphold the values of modesty and religious practice. My wife and daughters can only use the spa on the rooftop due to its privacy and the fact that it is not visible to the street, an aspect that is essential to maintaining our religious modesty belief. We've tried multiple times to speak to our neighbor, attempting to explain and resolve this issue in a neighborly way, but she has not shown any good faith or effort to work with us. All we got out of the last hearing when we met the neighbor for the first time is that she is concerned with short-term rentals and parties on rooftop decks, all of which are hypothetical and have nothing to do with why my home can't have a spa. We are being penalized over some unrealized fear.
Thank you, sir.
Is that it? Can I request a few more moments, or?
At this time, it will be up to the commission. Commission, what is your pleasure? At this time, I have no decision one way or another. If you do, please state a time extension. Commissioner Nash.
I would move that we allow the speaker an additional 90 seconds or 2 minutes, whatever the.
Okay. I hear 2 minutes. It's been moved by Commissioner Nash to extend the presentation time by 2 minutes. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you. Is there any debate on this, on the extension for presentation?
Yes.
Vice Chair, Dr. Stewart.
Can we move that to 5 minutes?
I hear an
Modify
amendment.
the motion.
Okay, I hear an amendment to extend it to 5 minutes by Vice Chair Dr. Stewart. Is there a second on amending the motion to make it to 5 minutes?
Second by Nash.
Seconded by Commissioner Nash. Is there any debate on this motion? Okay. Given no debate, first we're going to vote on an amendment to change the 2 minute extension to 5. If that passes, we'll vote on the actual extension itself. If it doesn't pass, we'll vote on the extension of 2 minutes. Madam Secretary, can we please have a roll call for the amendment to increase the extension of presentation time from 2 to 5 minutes?
Vice Chair Dr. Stewart,
Yes.
Commissioner Nash,
Aye.
Commissioner Chavez,
No.
Commissioner Dr. Lopez,
Yes.
Commissioner Sealsdorf,
Yes.
Chair Arejo,
No.
motion passes.
The motion before the commission is to extend the presentation time of the applicant slash appellant by 5 minutes. Is there any debate on this amended motion?
Chair,
Commissioner Chavez?
I can appreciate wanting to plead your case, but prior to your, I'm assuming your legal counsel, it was already determined that you would have 10 minutes total. And now you're requesting to exceed that 10 minutes time, knowing that you only had 10 minutes. So clearly there's a motion and I will be voting against it.
Thank you, Commissioner Chavez. Is there any other deliberation on the motion to extend the presentation time by 5 minutes? Vice Chair Dr. Stewart.
Yes, I guess it's just always been my belief that we always give everybody the opportunity to speak. You know, we do that, we extend sometimes for the public comments. And so I just always like to hear what everybody has to say before we deliberate, make a decision that has that effect, you know.
Thank you, Vice Chair Dr. Stewart. Commissioner Nash? None? Seeing no further deliberation, Madam Secretary, can we have the roll call on extending the presentation time by 5 minutes?
Commissioner Nash,
Aye.
Vice Chair Dr. Stewart,
Yes.
Commissioner Chavez,
No?
Commissioner Dr. Lopez. Aye. Commissioner Seelsdorf,
Aye.
Chair Orejo,
No.
motion passes.
Thank you. Sir, your presentation time has been extended for 5 minutes.
Thank you. What is most unfair is that my neighbor is allowed to have a spa on her street side deck if she chooses to have one, but I cannot. It is disheartening to see that at our last hearing, the interim director knew very little about our neighborhood. The interim director stated that the rooftop decks are typically located toward the middle or beach side of properties. Yet, if the interim director would have taken the opportunity to thoroughly survey the area, she would have found many rooftop decks along the street, several of which include spas. Furthermore, those neighbors who do not currently have spas are free to install them whenever they please, as there is no restriction in place for them, including my neighbor. However, per the latest staff report for my home and my home only, it is not consistent with the character of the subzone. Staff's recommendation to approve my permit at the August 24th hearing should have been upheld, as it demonstrated that I met all coastal site design and zoning standards. While an alternative location may have been identified with the past owner of the property on the beach side, it fails to acknowledge the fact that our family does not have any other viable option that adheres to our religious values. The rooftop deck provides that necessary privacy that we require. Finally, my family and I have reached out to our neighbors, walking the neighborhood, gathering signatures and letters of support. The support from our surrounding neighbors has been overwhelming. They are also concerned that the city might reassert their authority and let individual neighbors set their own rules against other neighbors. How far will this go? Will the city allow any neighbor to pursue a deed restriction on a home purely because they dislike what they see or hear or who lives there? In the event that an unjust deed restriction is mistakenly implemented, there is a mechanism in place to allow for its removal. That's why I'm here today. We are hopeful that the commission, consisting of our fellow neighbors who understands what is fair and what is not, will vote in favor of granting my appeal and rectify the situation. I urge you to review all the pertinent facts, and by doing so, I'm confident you will recognize the unfair nature of the restriction imposed on my home and my home alone, and grant my appeal. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, sir. Given past precedent, when we have a lot of public comment, the chair will recommend to the commission that we take public comment before questions, as sometimes our questions are quite lengthy. Is there any objection to reordering how we usually do the hearing? Seeing no objection, we'll go into public comment. First, on those who previously signed up, and then we'll take any additional in the council chamber or on the phone. The first is I want to say Meyer or Majer, Solmajer. If you're in the council chamber or on phone, please make yourself known. And while we're getting you up here, possibly, the next on deck is Mr. Jeff Weiss, Weiss.
There's a raised hand online. I don't know if that's one of them.
Okay. What's the ending number? Okay, allow, yeah,
They stopped.
okay.
There it is, ends 04080. That would be Sol.
Sol, if you could please state your name just to make sure, and you have 3 minutes once you begin talking. Possibly press star 6 to unmute. We cannot hear you at this time. If you're talking, we still cannot hear you. We'll give you a few more seconds, and then we'll take you at the end of the list.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Saul Major, and I also wrote in a letter in support of Mr. and Mrs. Mandelbaum's request. I'm a homeowner in Oxnard. Like the Mandelbaums, I have a vacation home there on Ocean Drive, not far from where the Mandelbaums' home is. And after hearing his issue, I wanted to, show my support that I'm also Orthodox, and we have perhaps modesty issues that not everyone has. Women in our community are generally not supposed to be in a public place without certain, situations being more modest. And I just felt this was not an unreasonable request, considering it's on the roof, and I understand that it doesn't impact any neighbors. I wanted to express my support and see if the council, the planning commission, would take into consideration that it has no impact on anyone, including the neighbor that's not happy about it.
Thank you, Mr. Major. Next, we have Jeff Weiss, and following that, Rabbi Dov Muchnik. If Jeff Weiss could make themselves known. Assuming you're on the phone, please press star 6 or raise your hand so we know you're there. Okay.
He's been unmuted.
Jeff Weiss?
Yeah, but this.
Yes, we can hear you now. You have 3 minutes. Sir, we were able to hear you for a few seconds. If you could please begin.
No, this is not Jeff. This is not Jeff Weiss. I am somebody else who does
Okay.
press 9.
Jeff Weiss, if you're hearing us, you'll be called at the end of the list. Next will be Rabbi Dov Muchnik, and following that, Solomon Goldner. Is Rabbi Dov Muchnik here?
Here.
Yes, sir. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Pardon my voice. My name is Rabbi Dov Muchnik, and I have the distinct honor of being the only rabbi in this wonderful city of Oxnard. I'm also a police chaplain with the city. I'm here as an expert, if you will, on Jewish law and tradition, and what Mr. Mandelbaum and what his counsel, Fred, shared earlier, and what you heard from Mr. Major on the phone as well, is indeed true. In the Jewish faith, modesty is a bedrock. It's an integral part of our way of life. If you look at the beautiful Orthodox Jewish women here tonight, the way they're dressed very modestly is not just because it's cold in this chamber, which it is, but this is how they would dress even on a hot day. They would walk around with full sleeves and clothing that goes up to the collarbone, and dresses and skirts as opposed to pants and so on. Especially swimming and being in swim gear is not something that would be done in public. And so this is an actual, real, true reality. It's a major part of the Jewish tradition, and those who adhere to Jewish observance in the Orthodox way, which is fully following our thousands of years old tradition, take this very seriously, including my wife and my 6 daughters, thank God. In fact, in our own home, which is not far away, we're on Sunset Drive Sunset Lane in Hollywood Beach, not technically in the city of Oxnard, but close enough. We have a jacuzzi on our roof, and we were very careful to strategically place it in a way that it wouldn't be seen from the street or as much as possible from the side neighbors. We had some barriers built and so on. So this is an actual requirement and necessity for them. They don't have the luxury of, okay, just put it on the front, put it downstairs, put it somewhere else. They're trying to be sensitive to their family's needs. And as has been already pointed out, it doesn't take away from the neighborhood. It doesn't bother any neighbors who can't even see it up there or hear it. So it's a very reasonable request. And frankly, it's their religious rights. And we're very blessed to live in this country where we have the freedom of religion. I'd like to add in my last 40 seconds that, of course, we know that right now in Israel, unfortunately, there's war and there was many innocent lives lost and hostages taken. Believe it or not, there are Jewish women around the world who have taken upon themselves to increase in their modesty as a spiritual way to help their brothers and sisters in the Holy Land. We do good deeds. We take our faith more seriously when there's a challenge to our people, and modesty is one of them. So this is a very serious matter for this family, and they deserve to have the ability to enjoy their beautiful home here and their spa, and at the same time do it in a way that's consistent with their faith and their belief. That's a miracle. Rabbis talk for a long time.
Thank you very
You're
much,
welcome.
Rabbi. The next is Solomon Goldner, and following Solomon is Brian Jor. Is Solomon Goldner here or on the phone?
I'm on the phone.
Okay, thank you.
I'm on the phone.
Yes, thank you. We hear you. You have 3 minutes.
Okay. All right. So I'm a neighbor of the Mandelbaums. There's one home between us and them. I'm 1205 Capri Way, and they are 1215 Capri Way. I'm between two homes that each of them have a rooftop spa. And I never even knew that until I went up to my roof, and that's when I noticed that they had them. So here I am. I cannot put one on my roof because it's just not set up for it. But the two neighbors that are on each side of me have one, and I think it's very unfair for the Mandelbaums not to be able to put one as well. Like I said, I never saw these. I never knew they had them until I was up on my roof. You know, Mr. Mandelbaum spent a lot of money building that house. I spent money buying my home 2 years ago and remodeling. It gave a lot of money to local contractors, income to the community. Property taxes are quite high. The property tax there is actually higher than my home in Los Angeles. So, you know, I think the beautiful homes have upped the value of properties in the area and a lot of benefits. And I think it would not be fair and not good for the city, for the reputation. It might persuade other people to look elsewhere because of these restrictive types of behavior. So I'm very much would hope that the commission would grant this appeal. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. The next person is Brian Jor. Following Brian is Daniel Voss. If Brian Jor could come, okay, they're here in the council chambers. You have 3 minutes, sir, when you begin speaking.
Thank you, Chairman, Commissioners. I appreciate the opportunity to address you on this issue. My name is Brian Dror. I reside at 2213 Vina Del Mar, Oxnard, California, 93035. I've also been lucky enough to have developed and remodeled a number of homes on the beach on Hollywood Beach, and I have a very extensive vested interest in Oxnard property development. I'd like to take a moment to remind everybody, we started this hearing or this meeting by saying the Pledge of Allegiance. And in that Pledge of Allegiance, we stand for liberty. One of the liberties that were originally granted by the initial version of the United States Declaration of Independence was the right to own property. Here we have someone, Mr. and Mrs. Mandelbaum, who own property. and are being the only home that is being singled out to prevent them from having a rooftop jacuzzi. I want to point out to the commissioners, the rooftop deck is not in question. A rooftop deck has already been granted, has been allowed, was approved, is built, and is not in question. In reality, a rooftop jacuzzi provides for more privacy to the neighbor that's complaining, because when you're sitting in a jacuzzi, you're not standing on the rooftop looking over the edge. So I would venture to put forth that the neighbor's concern and the neighbor's complaint is a pure personal grievance. Please do not allow this institution or this commission to be the site for a personal grievance to be adhered to. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The next person is Daniel Voss, followed by Ari Goldner. Is Daniel Voss here? Thank you very much. You have 3 minutes, sir.
Good evening, welcome. Well, thank you for welcoming us. My name is Dan Voss Jr. I've been a resident of Oxnard Shores since 1964. I'm the general contractor for the Mendelbaums. My late father and myself have been responsible for building quality homes in Ventura County since 1965. We have built over 1,600 homes in the city of Oxnard. We're most notably responsible for the approval of the specific plan to develop the 220-acre waterside community known as Harbor Island, Seabridge, Westport, and the Vaughn Shopping Center. Most of these projects come with pushbacks from neighbors, deed restrictions, zone changes, and they require lengthy public hearings. I've stood before this planning commission many times over the past 45 years and ultimately found your decisions to be sound and fair. However, in this case, a recent decision denying the application for the rooftop jacuzzi made by the interim planning director is not fair. The decision was made on inaccurate information. The interim director reports states a rooftop jacuzzi on the front side of the property is not generally consistent with the neighborhood character. In fact, there's 57 homes existing with street side decks capable of carrying a jacuzzi in Oxnard Shores. Many of them have them, many of them don't. It's the owner's decision if they want to maintain a jacuzzi and keep it on their deck or not, but they certainly have the right to put it there. Over 57 in this community. Unfortunately, the interim director did not take the time to go out and look at the property and stand there and look and see. It's impossible to see the jacuzzi on the deck. Impossible. You can't see it, you can't hear it. The truth is here, we're here based on a theory developed by Diane Delaney prior to the home ever being built. Ultimately, this relentless campaign resulted in a deed restriction on the home, the placement of the jacuzzi, which is tucked 20 feet away from the railings, surrounded by 42-inch high frosted glass, on a deck that was 16 feet above the roof of Diane Delaney, and 50 feet away from an alley below side, would no in any way interfere with their privacy. However, it would provide the Mendelbaums the privacy whose Orthodox Jewish religion requires modesty. I don't have to go in on that. Over the last 10 months, Diane has not been able to provide any evidence that has occurred as a result of the jacuzzi being placed on this deck. There's no video, no picture, no sound bite. You can't hear it, you can't see it. Nobody can hear it, nobody can see it. I'm limited for time, so I'm going to deduct a couple things here. I know with working in the city, it's not generally politically correct for the commissioners to go against the staff's recommendation. The staff did recommend this. The interim director said it overrode it. For what reason, I can't understand.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
The next person is Ari Goldner, followed by Perry Lefkowitz. Is Ari Goldner here?
She's online, yes.
Okay. You can unmute yourself, and you have 3 minutes when you begin speaking.
Am I unmuted?
Yes, you can begin.
Mr. Chair and Planning Commissioners, my name is Ari Goldner, and I'm a resident of Oxnard Shores. The Mandelbaum's new residence is a wonderful addition to the neighborhood and very discreet. It's worth noting that the spot in question is thoughtfully situated, set back toward the center of the property and shrouded by frosted glass along the roof line. This makes it nearly imperceptible and inaudible to the surrounding neighbors. Another noteworthy point is that when children play on their own rooftop patio, The noise level often reaches around 90 decibels. Should we be thinking about restricting the Mandelbaum's grandchildren from enjoying their own rooftop? I have children and grandchildren. It's clear that some aspects of this situation may not align with common sense. If the project genuinely posed an issue in terms of compatibility with the neighborhood character, there should be a specific finding that points to this discrepancy. If the Mandelbaum's home adheres to all local coastal and site design standards, there appears to be no substantial basis for denying this appeal. I urge you to apply common sense here and grant their appeal. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Goldner. The next is Perry Lefkowitz, followed by A.J. Mandelbaum. Is Perry Lefkowitz here? Yes, you have 3 minutes.
Hi, I would like to start by thanking you for having me here and for taking the time to listen to me speak a little about my family and our home. My name is Penina Lefkowitz. I'm a daughter of Ben and Michelle Mandelbaum. I live in LA with my husband and our son Noah, who loves to come to the beach with his Bobby and Papa. Public speaking is not in my nature, but I feel very strongly about this. I speak on behalf of my entire family as religious people. As Jewish women, we dress modestly, and it is a tradition which I and my family hold very dear. We have a set of guidelines which we uphold to and are very proud about. As a married woman, I cover my hair, wear skirts, and dress in a manner of modesty and refinement. Even more than dress, modesty is applied to the way we present ourselves and act in public. I believe that every neighbor and community member that my parents have gotten to know throughout this ordeal would agree that they embody this sense of modesty and respect. They were met with overwhelming support, love, and acceptance towards our situation and the feelings we have in being the only ones in the area barred from having a rooftop spa. To me, this is not an issue about a jacuzzi. Rather, it's about religious acceptance and understanding. At the last hearing, the director concluded that the previous restriction stands because it is not restricting us from having a jacuzzi, as there is another option, to put the spa on the beachside porch. As a religious woman who upholds to a high standard of modest dress, having a jacuzzi in full public view is not an option for me and my family. It takes away the possibility of myself, my mother, and my sisters to be able to enjoy this jacuzzi with our family in a normal way. We would have to be fully covered at all times. We've heard in the past the argument, what can we rely on if the city undoes a deed restriction that was already put in place? For whatever reason this restriction was put into place, the reason the system exists and we have appeals is for when situations change. And it is obvious that when my family bought this home from the preceding owner, the situation changed. I want to counter that previous argument by saying, what can we as members of the city have to rely on if, when indeed situations change and many new factors arise, including those of religion, we cannot be heard? I also want to quickly address the noise concern. We are quiet people, so much so that the room I choose to put my 19-month-old baby to sleep in, at 6:30 p.m. by the way, is directly below the deck and jacuzzi where we all hang out. All you can hear down there is the air conditioning. There have been no valid points as to why the Mandelbaum house, the house which truly relies on the privacy of our rooftop deck, should be the only home in the area with a restriction of this sort. The process of appeal exists for a reason, and I think this is it. I believe that the people of Oxnard are good people who care about religion, family, and peace. My family is a peaceful family. I wish that we did not have to stand here in front of you. All we want is to enjoy our home together in this beautiful new community. I hope that this case, as insignificant as one jacuzzi may seem, can set a standard here in the city of Oxnard of equality, fairness, and understanding to all. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Lefkowitz. Next up is Gary Rosen, followed by Fred Cervantes. If Gary Rosen can make themselves known.
There was AJ under Perry.
Gary and Rosen and Fred Cervantes, if you can stay on deck. AJ Mandelbaum, you have 3 minutes if you're in the council chambers. Thank you. Thanks. You have 3 minutes, sir. You can begin.
Hi, everyone. My name is AJ Mandelbaum. I'm the son of Ben and Michelle Mandelbaum. I live in the Los Angeles area with my wife and 2 daughters. I want to begin by thanking the commissioners and the planning department for giving us the opportunity to discuss this unfair and illogical deed restriction that has been placed on my parents' home. Today, I implore you, commissioners, to look at this issue with common sense. Oxnard Shores has many homes with roof-front patios, many of which have hot tubs on them, and the homes that don't have the option, as they should, of putting one in. My parents are the only ones who have this restriction. Is this fair? We now must ask, why was this deed restriction implemented in the first place? The deed restriction was put in place because the previous owner of the property, Jim Sanford, was under extreme pressure due to a neighbor's persistence. I don't blame Jim for agreeing to this ridiculous restriction because we would all likely do the same thing under these same circumstances. I grew up and currently live in the Hancock Park area in Los Angeles. 60 years ago, Hancock Park Properties had a deed restriction excluding selling property to Jews and blacks. Are we expected to uphold these ridiculous and hateful restrictions because a previous owner agreed to them? Would this restriction be upheld? We must use our common sense and reevaluate the deed restriction's merits. It is irresponsible to maintain this deed restriction solely because it's already in place. Meeting with neighbors, I can assure you the support we have is overwhelming. The only challenge is explaining to the neighbors where the hot tub is located, since it is absolutely not visible from the street. Again, the hot tub is absolutely not visible from the street, not from the neighbor's bedroom, or anywhere at all. And I invite everyone here to come see this for yourself. This being said, why would anyone care what we do in the complete privacy of our own home? Why is this neighbor so concerned? The neighbor is concerned about noise. She is worried that we will be throwing hot tub parties on the roof deck. My family is a quiet, deeply religious, and respectful family. The rooftop deck is remaining no matter what. The issue at hand is the hot tub. If the hot tub is removed, would the rooftop deck be less conducive of an environment to party and noise? If anything, there would be more space to party. The issue of noise has nothing to do with the hot tub. It has to do with the people who inhabit the property. Maybe we should start putting deed restrictions on who is able to buy a home in Oxnard. Maybe we should put a deed restriction on selling homes to families with children, because children make noise. We must draw a line. We must use common sense. I just got back this past Tuesday night from Israel with my wife and 2 daughters. We spent days sleeping in bomb shelters trying to explain to our scared 5-year-old daughter what the explosions were overhead, why people would want to hurt us. I know this issue of a hot tub seems trivial compared to what's going on in the world right now, but when something doesn't add up, when something doesn't make sense, we must speak up. This is not just about a spa. This is about infringing on our rights to enjoy our home the same way every other neighbor has the right to enjoy their home.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next up is Gary Rosen, followed by Fred Cervantes. Gary Rosen. If you're online, on the phone, press star 9 to raise your hand or star 6 to unmute.
Hi, good evening. My name is Gary Rosen, and I also am a homeowner 2 blocks away on Neptune. I have heard eloquently from builders, construction people, develop properties here in the community, and I am surrounded by 3 homes in my neighborhood 2 blocks away that have rooftop decks with jacuzzis, and I've never heard any sound coming from any of them. I also would like to remind the public and the council this evening that we live in a time where we are growing and being aware of sensitivities of other groups and other people. The sensitivity to modesty is a real thing for Jewish people. And I would also like to say that if there is a lone voice, which is the case here, one person who objects and claims an unprovable harm that has never occurred, then should that voice triumph over the majority of the neighbors that make no such claim at all? No one has made a claim other than this one person, and I do not know this person, but I know the issue, and the issue is unfair, and the way, knowing where these 2 houses are, the line of sight from the top of the home, the Mandelbaum home, to the neighbor's home, there is no possibility that they could see or she could see them. It's completely obscured, it's completely private, and 30 feet up, it's completely soundproof. So thank you very much this evening, and I also urge the council to approve the Mandelbaum change on the ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next up is Fred Cervantes, followed by Bob, either Jurek or Jurek. Is Fred Cervantes here? Thank you very much. You have 3 minutes when you begin. Thanks.
Hope everybody's doing well here in this room. Hi, my name is Fred Cervantes. I'm just a concerned citizen. My speech will be short and to the point. I've been a resident in the city of Oxnard since '87. I've been surfing, skateboarding, and hanging out on these beaches all along these shores quite a long time now. I also have friends that live in the shores. One day I was walking in my vehicle and noticed a sign posted up. I did a little research and found out that the home was declined for a spa on the rooftop. I'm not sure why this particular home is being targeted, and it seems kind of odd. That being said, I know that some of the homes in that area have spas. Over the years, I've been to quite a few social gatherings and seen them myself. I believe this is unfair to the homeowners due to the fact when I mentioned earlier that a few homes on the rooftop have spas. Thank you for your time, and hope everyone has a blessed evening.
Thank you very much. Next up is Bob Jurek, followed by David Laffer, Lavfer. Is Bob, and if you could just say your last name.
Jurek.
Jurek, thank you.
Yeah.
You have 3 minutes, thank you.
My name is Bob Jurek. I have had my real estate license in California since 1972. I've been selling property on the beach for the last 51 years. And I've seen a lot of jacuzzis on a lot of rooftop decks. I'll make this short and direct. I can't understand why this applicant cannot have a rooftop deck. I think it's absurd for you guys to not allow that. I don't get it. I just don't get it. This jacuzzi is located on the roof, 30 feet high, off the driveway, in the middle of the roof, 15 feet from any outside wall, surrounded by frosted glass. The applicant's done everything they can to make this as private as they can. The glass optimizes the privacy for the property. Nobody's going to see this jacuzzi, and no one's going to hear this jacuzzi. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up is David Laffer, followed by Diane Delaney. David Laffer, thank you very much. You have 3 minutes.
Good afternoon, members of the commission, Mr. Chairman. My name is David Laffer. When I was born in Ukraine in 1941, my Hebrew name given was David ben Yosef. One of the things that I learned as an inheritor of the covenant that Abraham made with our God was that we live with our agreements. And I gave up the study of becoming a rabbi after I immigrated to the United States, became a citizen, and volunteered for the Army and was honorably discharged to become a lawyer. And the reason I wanted to become a lawyer was because I knew the law would protect us all. It was the law that would protect us. And while my landsmen make a compelling argument, including my wonderful rabbi, Mr. Munchkin, what we miss in this dispute is the fact that the restriction was voluntarily agreed to. It was agreed to and put in a deed of trust, and that deed of trust was disclosed to my friends at the Mandelbaums in their title report before they closed escrow on that home and bought it. So when we talk about discrimination against Jews or any minorities, that has no place in this case. This case is about whether or not people will live with their agreements and whether through the good efforts of their lawnsman, they can come and basically say, we had a right to appeal the condition to the Coastal Commission. We withdrew that condition. We withdrew that appeal. We had a right to appeal the Building Safety Department order to remove the spa, yet the builder did not. He removed it. We had a right to file an appeal in the commission to redo that condition to explain all the things that they've done today. They refused to do that. So what did they do? They hired a lawyer to come in and to raise a religious issue that I dearly respect, and to convince
Thank you, sir.
to undo what they voluntarily agreed.
Thank you, sir. Your time is
Please
up.
support the law.
Thank you. The next is Diane Delaney, followed by Walter Hagedorn. Is Diane Delaney here or on?
Chair, I wanted to ask you, I'm obviously the complaining neighbor. I'm kind of at the center of this. I had talked to Joe and Serena, and I kind of wanted to let Walt go ahead of me, and I wanted a couple extra minutes because there's been a lot of allegations against me, and I'd like to be able to address those. And so I don't know if it would be acceptable to you to have Walt go ahead of me with his 3 minutes, and if I could have maybe 5.5 minutes just to conclude.
I hear your request. At this time, the chair will respectfully decline your request, subject to an objection by the Planning Commission or a motion from them. Commissioner Nash.
I think in the interest of fairness, I have to make a motion that we grant Ms. Delaney's request for I would say, give her an additional 90 seconds. So that would be 4.5 minutes.
It has been moved by Commissioner Nash to have Mr. Walter Hagedorn go before Ms. Delaney and give Ms. Delaney, I'm going to do 5 minutes because we can't do partial minutes. 5 minutes for her time. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Vice Chair Dr. Stewart. Is there any deliberation on the motion before us? I'll speak against the motion before us. I believe that we're changing some of the roles in the middle of it. I just, right now, maybe if it was in going to council, an appeal, there would be a rejecting party, but this appeal is towards the city, and any public comments, they're not a direct party to it, so I just don't believe in the interests of fairness, in the chair's opinion, that we should vote in favor of this. Is there any further deliberation on this motion? Commissioner Nash? No. Thank you. With no further deliberation, Madam Secretary, can we please have a roll call?
Commissioner Nash?
Aye.
Vice Chair Dr. Stewart?
Yes.
Chair Rejo?
No.
Commissioner Chavez?
No.
Commissioner Dr. Lopez?
Yes.
Commissioner Seelsdorf?
Yes.
Motion passes.
With the motion passes, Mr. Walter Hagedorn, you have 3 minutes, and following that, Ms. Diane Delaney, you have 5 minutes. Mr. Walter Hagedorn.
Thank you. Good evening, members of the Planning Commission. I'm Walter Hagedorn. I am an architect and a chair of the Oxnard Shores Neighborhood Council, but I am representing myself tonight. This hearing, despite what is written in some of the letters, is not about the imposition of restrictions against the applicants building a rooftop spa facing Capri Way. It is about removing a deed restriction that were placed on this during the permit process, which allowed a spa on the first floor deck facing the ocean, but forbid the spa on the rooftop. This restriction was proposed by the developer, Mr. Sanford. In return, Ms. Delaney was asked to remove any objections she had to the projects, which she did. The negotiations proceeded quickly in good faith by all parties and was memorialized in a coastal development permit recorded with the county recorder and incorporated in the title report. The Mandelbaums bought the lot with the permit and understood the restrictions when they started to build. It is obvious the Mandelbaums had no intention of honoring the agreement. Instead, the applicant built the spa in violation of the permit. After being cited by the city, they decided to try to get around the deed restriction by applying for a new coastal development permit to undo the restrictions which were placed on them, and to do this without the consent of those who had benefited from the agreement. It was disappointing that staff initially did not properly represent this project. They never mentioned the history of agreements, the deed restrictions, and stated the applicant bought the house completed. Staff recommended approval of the permit without all of the necessary information. The Community Development Director, Tamuri, saw the problem in approving this permit. Unfortunately, the staff did not transcribe and enter her decision into the staff report for this meeting. However, we have transcribed it and entered it into the record. Her decision starts with a simple declaration. Quote, "In the end, Jeff Lambert got it right," unquote, meaning the planning department got it right. They dotted their I's, they crossed their T's, they went through a long process with many conditions other than just this one, which are bound up into a coastal development permit, which no one has challenged, and the director determined that should not be changed. She also noted that the alternative spa location would, quote, "preserve their right to have a spa, perhaps not in your top location or your choice." As an architect, and I want to emphasize this, I've gone through this for 40 years. I find placing this deck on the roof above where you can't go any higher right now. There's no ceilings, there's no walls. They have a 45-inch railing. And the alternative that was approved was to put it on a deck where you have a ceiling where you can have easily retractable shades and shutters, which are much more private than you would have on this upper deck. I do not believe that this is a privacy issue or a modesty issue at this point. The permit process was done properly, and you should agree to uphold her decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. D'Angelini, you have 5 minutes.
Can I distribute these to you guys, or there's a couple attachments to them?
Yeah. You can give it to the Madam Secretary, but I'm going to have to ask you to start speaking once you give it to the Madam Secretary, and then she can distribute that to us. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioners, this has been a very long, stressful process filled with, I hate to say, lies on the applicant's side. You can see from my submission, facts backed with written documentation that clearly dispute what the applicant team has said in writing and in their video. The applicant had those proofs from the last CDD meeting and know they are lying, and yet they have doubled down on their lies to have their way. Deed Restriction 65 resulted from a voluntary agreement at the request of the then owner builder Sandifer and me, as seen in attachment number 3, where on June 8, 2020, Sandifer stated, "Since you feel so strongly about the possible noise of the spa on the rooftop deck, we will eliminate it. We would like to ask you if you would have a problem if we put the spa on the oceanside deck. I think you would agree that you would hear no noise from there. We are asking that you pull your appeal with the city if we agree to take the spa off the street side deck." I promptly agreed. What he asked for is exactly what resulted in Deed Restriction 65 and was resolved within 2 weeks when on June 23, 2020, per our agreement, I withdrew my appeal. The Notice of Land Use Restrictions, including Condition 65, was recorded with the county November 5, 2020, and accepted by the Mandelbaums in their escrow title and purchase recorded 12/30/2020. They knew from day one of the restriction. They purchased from Sandifer, and Sandifer's son was the realtor. This is undisputed. In the video, Sandifer stated there were months of pushback from me. The moderator says I put a lengthy pause on his building plans on multiple occasions, costing them tens of thousands of dollars. You have the email before you. They are lying. The city was part of the negotiation. It was quick, clean, and I thought in good faith. But by their own admission, they did not act in good faith. Sandifer now says the beachside location is a bad choice. Then why did he suggest it? And why do most others choose the beachside of their decks for their decks and amenities? They say this is about privacy and religious modesty, but code is a 45-inch for the railing and the jacuzzi is 42 inches tall with stairs. You won't have privacy or a sound barrier with a location on with a 45-inch railing. My neighbor told me he can clearly see their deck from his house. The email is attached there. The permitted location on the beachside deck is much more private and can become made much more private, more so than the roof. They have options, I do not. Another neighbor told me this is how these contractors operate. When the city went to final the property on July 18th, 2022, they informed applicant they were in violation of their permit with the rooftop spa. Applicant removed the spa, but after they got their final, they just put the spa right back on the deck. In the code violation attachment 8, in my original submission, the city notes on November 19th, 2022, the builder, architect, and owner were previously advised of this violation on July 18th. Remove the hot tub. They give a video example of a Sandifer home with a roof deck without a spa at 1239 Capri Way. The code is 45 inches max for the railing. After that house gets it final, an extension to the railing was added in violation of the permit. I think this is just how the contractors out there operate. It is obvious the applicant never intended to obey their permit. Maybe Sandifer told them that's how things are done in Oxnard. We don't know, but it should be between the Sandifers and the Mandelbaums to resolve that. They portray me as the bad guy and want you to feel sorry for them. They have 5,600 square feet of home, 5 bedrooms, 5 baths, an additional retreat home, a gym, a media room, even a putting course, a large B-side deck space permitted for a hot tub, and a beautiful sandy beach and the Pacific Ocean as their yard. Don't feel sorry for them. 3 past Oxnard community development directors have found that the decision to not allow a rooftop jacuzzi and to relocate the jacuzzi to the front of the property was fair and just. This compromise should continue to be memorialized as stated by the previous community development director. There is nothing that requires the city to approve the applicant's appeal, and I respectfully request that the Planning Commission deny the appeal. The one thing, too, that I want to remind you is that this is specific to this house. There are no other, on Capri Way, it's a very specific street. It's very narrow, and it doesn't have sidewalks and parking. So it's not like some of the other examples that they gave. In the DAC process, the permit review, allows for specific deed restrictions. I followed what the process was. I made agreements in good faith. I gave up appealable rights.
Thank you, Ms. Delaney.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next is Siana Marie Sesma, followed by Jesus Torres. Thank you, and you have 3 minutes when you begin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. I am Sienna Marie Sesma, and I've been assisting the Mandelbaums in getting organized for this hearing. However, this issue became a passion project as I was in disbelief of the lack of common sense. I decided to speak on this issue. We all have a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, even aggrieved neighbors. That's why they're aggrieved. However, there is something wrong when an individual goes to the extent of strong-arming their neighbor and placing a deed restriction on a neighboring property, not because there's a snowy plover nest on the property or a safety issue. The deed restriction is over a jacuzzi spa. As one stands on the very private deck with the spa at max speed, you do not in fact hear, you in fact hear something, and it's actually quite loud. But it isn't the spa you hear, it's the glorious waves crashing on Oxnard's coast. With the spa going full speed, all you hear is the sounds of the beach about 50 yards away. So let's please use our common sense. We're overthinking this. Approve this permit without an arbitrary restriction on a hot tub. And let's go on with our lives. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Jesus Torres, followed by Jeff Weiss, who we were unable to get in contact with at the beginning. Jesus Torres.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members, and staff. I'm Jesus Torres with League Public Strategies, and I'm here to speak in support of the applicant, the Mandelbaum family. There's been a lot that's been said, but I'd like to focus on what's before you. You're being asked to grant an appeal by the Mandelbaum for a new coastal development permit. Why are they seeking a new CDP? They want to remove an unfair and arbitrary deed restriction put in place by an aggrieved neighbor. The Mandelbaums are not trying to hide the fact that they are seeking to remove the restriction. That's why we're here. Nobody is disputing the restriction. The restriction is wrong. That's why we're here. One individual should not set boutique zoning rules to suit their tailored interests. Yes, they have a right to advocate for themselves, but a deed restriction on a hot tub before the house was even built is an abuse of the system. The Mandelbaums have grandkids. They have a ping pong table, a fire pit, a barbecue. They have family gatherings. What is so evil about a spa that it needs to be restricted? Any aggrieved neighbor has remedies to address their concerns. There's an STR ordinance that this body helped to craft. There's a noise ordinance. They can walk across the street, talk to their neighbor, solve their differences as the Mandelbaums have attempted to do. That's what neighbors are supposed to do. Show some grace. We're in the midst of wars and conflict and divisiveness. It'd be great to just show some grace, work with each other. And the Mandelbaums have bent over backward and try to solve this issue. But what is before you is a new CDP application, not a spa permit. Just remember that. The CDP application was originally denied because one finding wasn't satisfied. The application meets all site design, coastal, noise nuisance, general plan standards with fine, it checks all the boxes. But it's being held up because a spa that can be seen, can be heard, somehow alters the aesthetic uniformity of the subzone. Let's use our common sense here. It's a very vague and subjective finding. And as you've heard, the residents of Oxnard Shores are overwhelmingly in support of the Mandelbaums. By approving the CDP, you are reasserting your authority as a planning body and stopping these boutique zoning restrictions before other residents start putting restrictions on each other for other frivolous things like kids playing in backyards. Put yourself in the shoes of the Mandelbaums. How would you feel if your neighbor used every legal avenue to stop you from enjoying your backyard?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Jeff Weiss. On the phone, I believe.
Yes, good evening, planning commissioners and everybody in the audience there. Thank you for listening to my comments. Appreciate your time and consideration. I live just a few doors away from the Mandelbaums. Had the opportunity and the great pleasure to get to know them a little bit. They are, as you've heard from many other people, they are deeply religious, very spiritually God-oriented people, very low-key, very respectful. It's like they're not even there. Don't take that the wrong way. I mean, they're just so quiet. I mean, if you wanted to have a neighbor, they would be the ones that you'd want to have. And when I saw the sign up on their property for the Planning Commission hearing, I didn't really know what it was for, because I know they had just finished building that house. And so I asked them, and they explained to me what was going on, and I was surprised that they had a rooftop spa, because I had never seen it and never heard it, or any noise coming from it. So I was surprised that they even had one up there. I've had the opportunity as a real estate professional, builder, developer. I've had the opportunity to build build new houses, remodel existing houses. I've been in this situation before, and I've always found that the staff recommendations are very helpful and useful, and they carry a lot of validity and weight to them because the staff is the one that, you know, they get into the weeds on this stuff. And I think that it'd be wise to heed their recommendation and to approve the project for them. Thank you so much for your time. And I'm in full support of the Montalbans, and I hope you will be too. Okay. Have a nice evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Madam Secretary, do we have any other public comments that were added or any that you see that I've missed?
No additional speakers.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. At this time, I'm not going to close the public hearing now. If others wish to speak who haven't, I will give them the opportunity after questions by the commission to the applicant/appellant staff. At this time, I'm going to informally look at the dais and see if there's a want to go to a 5-minute break. Without objection, we will go into a 5-minute break. Let's come back in 10 minutes. Thanks. We're recessed for 5 minutes. The Planning Commission is back in session. At this time, we will have members of the Planning Commission ask questions of the applicant, appellant, or staff. During your questioning, please state who your questions are directed to. Commission.
Chair,
Commissioner Chavez.
just a point of clarification.
Yep.
That this is not a combination of questioning and deliberation. We're solely asking questions of the staff and applicant, correct?
Yes, that is correct, Commissioner Chavez.
Thank you.
Commissioner Nash.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to ask our staff an issue concerning how the Oxnard City Code deals with rooftop installations of jacuzzis and such, because it seems like absent such a regulation that we get into a situation like this where I'm kind of perplexed as to why we're even here debating this issue, because it's, to me, it's an issue of, well, either you're allowed to have one or you're not. And is there anything in our city code that addresses that?
There is nothing in the city code that expressly prohibits a rooftop spa or spa in general, sorry, with proper building permits, and as long as you adhere to noise regulations, it should be allowed.
Sorry. Okay, thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Commissioner Nash. Commissioner Dr. Lopez.
Thank you all. My first questions that I have prepared are directed to staff. So my understanding from the presentation and then the report was that initially staff did recommend to the director for approval. The director elected not to take that staff recommendation, and now we're here, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Does the matter end here tonight, or is there another body, be it the Coastal Commission or the City Council, that this would be elevated to?
So Commissioner Dr. Lopez, this could be appealed to the Coastal Commission, but this is the last level at the city level.
One more time, the second part about.
So this would be the last step at the local level.
Okay, so from here we go Coastal Commission.
That is correct.
Okay. And just to follow the history and the crumbs, that was one of the appeal routes that the neighbors would be able to, even though they forewent that with the agreement that had been reached with the previous owner. Is that correct?
So Commissioner Dr. Lopez, yes, they had the opportunity to appeal the previous project in 2020. They chose not to due to the agreement that they reached with the developer at that time. But yes, they would have had the opportunity at that time to appeal to the Planning Commission and ultimately to the Coastal Commission
as well. Okay. So have changes like this ever been decided on appeal of a condition? Meaning, has a condition ever been appealed after the project had been approved and habited? I'm just wondering how far-fetched is this?
I can speak for the 7.5 years I've been with the city. This is the first time I've seen a hearing such as this. It's very rare. Normally, you would, if you're not comfortable with or not accepting of a condition, you're going to appeal or take a legal action. So in this case, there was a settlement reached between the original property owner and Ms. Delaney. That property owner chose to accept it, and then they got their entitlement, and the notice of land use restrictions, which referenced the conditions, was recorded against the property at that time.
And the initial complaint, was it just from the one neighbor, Ms. Delaney, or was it also other neighbors at the time?
I was at the hearing that was before Jeff Lambert. I was there as legal counsel. Ms. Delaney was there, and my recollection, there were several other residents that supported her position.
Okay. One of the things that was in both the presentation and the report was this mention to the integrity and character of the subzone. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Commissioner Dr. Lopez, so as it refers to the subzone is the RBF, or the residential beachfront. So that applies to only the homes which are along the actual beachfront property. So there's Oxnard Shores, which is the larger area, but those homes on the other side of the street that are not beachfront are not part of that subzone. So when the comments were made by the prior director of the character of the subzone, it was referring to those beachfront homes specifically.
And was it just the beachfront homes on Capri, or all beachfront homes, including Mandalay, Sunset, Lane, and others?
So it would only be those within the city. So it would be Mandalay, Capri Way, and Marine Way. The further south homes, which are within the county, those are not within the city's jurisdiction.
Okay, and now a quick question for Mr. Rozelle. Is this, because someone brought this up, is this appropriately at this time in our jurisdiction? Or
Yes.
is there a gray area of interpretation?
It is not gray. This is black and white. This is an appeal of the former director's decision. Per our code, it goes to the planning commission, and as was stated, this is the final city body that will consider it. It will not go to council, but it is subject to appeal to coastal commission by either party, depending how the planning commission votes tonight.
One of the things that has been brought up has been reference to noise and nuisance. As far as we know, city staff, has that been a problem that the police department has expressed in terms of noise and nuisance for homes like this one in question, with a rooftop jacuzzi being the driver behind the nuisance?
So Commissioner Dr. Lopez, we're not aware of any issues related specifically to the noise created by a rooftop spa. There may be other issues, but not specific to a rooftop spa and the noise created by that.
Okay, there was a comment by one of the speakers, I believe, and they made reference to an unfair and unfit restriction. Would city staff agree with that characterization? We already classified it as extremely rare, which would be, I think, fair to describe, but would staff agree with the statement that was made of this being an unfair and unfit restriction?
Speaking as the Chief Assistant City Attorney, I strongly disagree with that characterization, and with the indulgence of the chair, I want to give a kind of a brief overview. The notice of land use restrictions are recorded against any property that goes through an entitlement such as this one, and it is not singling out anyone, and it actually does not, as a general rule, include the conditions of approval. It just says, basically tells any future buyer that there's these conditions and approvals, and you are bound by them. So basically, once that is recorded, it locks in those conditions, and if there are changes, that would have to be modified or amended. So this is not focusing on this particular property. This is standard city practice. So I think that's a really important point, because what was characterized is simply wrong.
Right, certainly. Thank you, staff, and thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Dr. Lopez. Vice Chair Dr. Stewart.
Yes, Dr. Lopez talked about the subzone, and in the subzone, the properties on the beachfront. Is the problem that the property cannot have a spa, and it was denied because of this, because the spa is on the street side of the roof, versus if it was in the middle or if it was on the ocean side, the middle and ocean side locations would be all right and the spa would be there? Is that what the case is in this case?
The specific condition that was placed on the CDP was for the street side placement of the spa. It was because of concerns that there was privacy issues with it being facing other houses. I don't know if Joe or anybody has anything to add.
Commissioner, Vice Chair Dr. Stewart.
At this time, I'm going to urge any guests or attendees to withhold your comments. Comments were supposed to be made a public comment. Thank you. Mr. Pearson.
So Vice Chair Dr. Stewart, as it relates to the placement, the reason that the Community Development Director chose to deny it was due to the placement on the street side. The condition of approval that was placed on it back in 2020 did allow for it to be on the ocean side. The justification being that it would be, again, further away from the properties on the street, addressing the concerns that were raised by that neighbor, Ms. Delaney, at that meeting.
Question though, if it was in the middle, would that also be okay? That wouldn't be a problem?
Potentially, that would be okay, but the deck that was approved is on the front side of the house at this time.
Okay. Now, if we do not uphold the community, what I would say, development director's denial, does that automatically make it an approval for the exception?
Yep. So if you did not uphold the director's denial of the project, essentially approving the appeal and allowing the project to move forward, that would remove the restriction and allow the rooftop spa to be placed on the roof.
Okay. I think that's what I have for staff right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Dr. Stewart. Any other members of the commission?
Chair.
Commissioner Chavez.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for everyone coming out tonight. Just a few questions for our staff, and then I'll switch over to the applicant team. I'm curious, we have different paths when projects come before us. Some of them come to us, and then they're appealed to the city council. Others go to the community development director and then get appealed to us if they don't like that decision. What was unique about this particular item that went to the community development director versus coming to us first?
Commissioner Chavez, this one, due to its location in the RBF zone, there was a settlement agreement that was approved for that area. I don't remember the exact date, but I believe it was 1980s, that established that any new single-family home in the RBF zone was subject to approval by the community development director. So even though it was a CDP, if it's in that location for a new single-family home, it is allowed to go to the community development director. Any decisions made by the community development director within the coastal zone are subject to appeal to the planning commission, and then with the planning commission being the final local body. And then ultimately, it would be appealable to the coastal commission.
I appreciate that, Mr. Pearson. The next question that I had is in regards to the way that our city sends up recommendations to whether it's the planning commission, to the city council, or even to the community development director. Correct me if I'm wrong, but typically when those items get placed on the agenda, it's by default that the staff believes that it should be approved. But it's the body that's listening to the item that makes the ultimate decision, correct?
Commissioner Chavez, that is correct. Typically, as staff, we work with applicant teams beforehand to make sure that the project is approvable, which is why most of the projects that come before any approval body are being recommended for approval, because most applicants obviously want staff's recommendation before they go before any commission or council. So yes, in this case, staff is the recommending body, but it is the director or planning commission or city council which are the actual decision makers on any project.
And correct me if I'm wrong, that for a project to be denied, it only needs one item versus a project to be approved, it needs a number of items to be met, correct?
Yes, Commissioner Chavez, as it relates to the findings that must be made, a body must be able to make all of the findings in order to approve a project. However, if only one finding cannot be made, then that would be grounds for denial of a project.
Now, is that unique only to the city of Oxnard, or is that a common thing that's throughout the entire state?
That is a standard practice as it relates to planning and zoning entitlements.
I appreciate that. Mr. Roselle, because you've been here for such a long time, and it's not a bad thing, it's a great thing. When our former community development director, Mr. Lambert, was here and this item was brought before him, what was his reasoning or the comments that were made to uphill this deed restriction for this particular property?
It was actually a little different than that. At that time, the item was going before him for approval, and there was the discussion, Ms. Delaney and others opposed the project, and there was the decision made that they basically made the deal or the arrangement where Ms. Delaney agreed not to appeal the matter, and that allowed the project to go forward. So Mr. Lambert was not involved with that. He was approving the project, with the conditions, but then there was the deal made to modify, so Ms. Delaney would not file that appeal.
Thank you for that. And then it was discussed that during the staff presentation and even during the quick overview about a code compliance complaint. Do we have a status on that? What ended up happening with that code compliance complaint?
Commissioner Chavez, so that code compliance complaint was resolved with the application of the permit that's before you today. So the issue was that they could not have the rooftop spa, so they are going through the process to try to allow for that spa. Should the commission ultimately not allow the spa to go on the roof, then ultimately they would have to remove the spa from the rooftop, or after appealing it potentially to Coastal Commission. If Coastal Commission also agreed that they were not allowed to have the spa, then the spa would need to be removed. And if it were not removed, then the code case would be reopened until they removed the spa from the roof.
And then can you just clarify, we've heard a lot about decks, front decks, back decks, roof decks. What we're hearing, or that the complaint is about, is they want to be on the very top of the roof, not like a deck that's like in the middle of the house, right? Can you just clarify that for me?
Yes, the request that's before the commission is to allow the deck on the actual rooftop of the structure. So it's a 2-story house with a roof deck on top. They want to be able to have that roof deck or roof spa on the actual roof itself, versus the condition of approval was going to allow it on the first floor deck on the beach side. So it would have been basically at ground level on the beach side of the property, as opposed to the rooftop on the street side of the property.
Now, I know that typically a lot of our projects have height restrictions. Do we have any height restrictions for this particular property, and will that spa on top of the roof exceed any height restrictions?
The spa on top of the roof will not exceed any height limitations that we have.
Okay. Chair, are we allowed to ask questions of the applicant, or do we want to just stay on staff for the moment?
It's up to each commissioner if you want to do both staff and applicant. We can have multiple rounds. There aren't any limitations to how many successions of questionings that we want. So you can go ahead or defer for the time being, Commissioner Chavez.
Okay, thank you. If there's no objection to my colleagues, I'll just continue with my questions. This question is going to be for the applicant team, and I'm not sure who wants to take that question. Maybe the family themselves. Were you aware of the deed restrictions? You can come up to the microphone, please.
So when we bought this property, we were very excited about this because it's actually the first time we've ever built any project. So it was mentioned to us, and with all honesty, I did not fully understand exactly what it meant, but what we wanted to do is go through the process of whatever it was to get it approved. So as we're doing now, so our intention was always to file for a new permit.
But you were aware that there was a
We-
restriction?
We were aware, again, like, I'm not in the real estate business. I really didn't fully understand what a deed restriction, what it all meant, to be honest. But it was always but I did hear about it. I did hear about something. But I felt like this is something, oh, it's just on this property. We'll work this out. We'll figure it out. And that was, again, like, our intention was always to go through the legal, the proper process to get this thing approved.
Now, it was mentioned even during the staff presentation and that the spa was installed on top of the roof and then later removed so that the final sign-off can be completed, and then it was put back on. Who recommended you guys to take those steps?
I wouldn't say it was a recommendation. What happened was when we first bought this property, it was during COVID. And then we went ahead and purchased a spa way in the beginning, before anything was ever built. It was a year out before we could actually get it, delivered to us. It took a year to order. So the spa was actually delivered, and we didn't know really what it was delivered, and it was put on the roof. And then we found out we had to take it down. So we took it down, we put it in our garage, and as we were finishing the project, we again had the intention we were going to go ahead and file for the appeal. We put it back on the roof because we had nowhere else to put it. Didn't have water, didn't have anything in it. We just put it on the roof, more like a storage. And then again, like I said, we wanted to go through the right process in order to get this thing approved.
Okay. That would be it for right now. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Chavez. Any other members of the commission?
Yes.
Vice Chair Dr. Stewart.
Question again for the applicant about the spa. Doesn't matter, whoever wants to come up. So I had two. The first is, my understanding is that the spa is sitting on the roof, but it's not being used. Is that what the case is? Or is it being used, or?
Well, right now, since we are in the appeal, we were told we can keep it there. So we do have water in there, and we're kind of like, to be honest, trying to see if anyone has any issues with it. Does anyone see it? Does anyone hear it? So, and we've tested it out. We put it on, we let people walk by. No one has any idea it's there. It was also made mention it's a built-in spa. It's not, it's a portable one. You could just lift it up, move it. So but yeah.
May I ask how long it's been there with the water in it and people using it?
It's been up there since I don't know, 7 months.
Okay, thank you. And then it has frosted glass all the way around it?
Yes, yes.
How tall is that glass?
42 inches.
Okay, 42 inches up above
Right.
the top of the spa.
Right,
Okay.
42 inches high. The spa you can't see the spa.
Okay,
It's
or
not-
you can't see the frosted glass either from the street?
The street, you can see the frosted glass, yes.
Okay, so it sticks up off the roof?
Correct.
Okay.
You have
And-
photos of it from both sides.
Right.
If you wanted to see it.
Right, I've looked at it, I just wanted to clarify my questions as to what was happening. And you go up the stairs, and I'm assuming that has the door that opens and you step inside, is that how it functions?
We have a staircase that goes up from the second floor. It's like an outdoor staircase, and it goes onto the rooftop deck. And then we have the jacuzzi's, it's as far away from the glasses. It's all the way against the house, so it's very far. And also, the rooftop deck is a step lower than our actual house roof. It's because it's over the garage. So when you're inside the house, you actually go down a couple steps to get onto that. So it's actually a little bit lower. And what was?
So it's not flat with the roof, it's sunken.
There's two levels to our house.
Okay.
So you have the roof, which is the roof of our house, and then you have the deck. The deck is a little bit lower than that, and I think it's also, you could see it in the picture, it's slightly lower than the actual roof of the house.
Okay.
You can sort of see it on the photo here, how the front is sunken a little.
It's sunken in.
Okay.
And the rest of the
It's
roof.
probably close to 5 feet sunken in.
All right. I think those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Dr. Stewart. Commissioner Nash.
Thank you, Chair. And Mr. Mandelbaum, can I ask you a question? And I'm not trying to be sarcastic or snarky or anything, and I deeply respect your right to practice your religion as you see proper. For myself, if I was concerned about privacy, having a rooftop jacuzzi would be really the last place I would put it, because I assume, and maybe I'm paranoid, I don't know, but every time I'm outside, I'm under surveillance, because we live in the age of drones, and they're, whether that's whether you're concerned about that or whatever, I certainly would be. So how do you reconcile the reality of, potential, spying by a drone with your need for privacy?
If you see our rooftop deck, it is really private. And the one benefit of having a rooftop deck such as this is the fact that my family can actually really enjoy it, and because it's so private. On the beach side, it's not an option for us. There, it's not private at all. There's people there. Go on weekends, there's tons of people there, and they can see into our house, they can see into our deck on the bottom floor. So in reality, really, the rooftop deck is the perfect place for us. We're not sitting here to worry about drones. The truth is, since I've been there, I haven't seen a drone. So that is our preference. And I think, with all honesty, I think some people said, most people would rather have it on the beach side because it's nice. It could be a good thing, sitting there and listening to the waves and being with the family. But for us, it's not an option. And that's why we're pushing so hard to get it on the rooftop, because of the privacy.
One question about the jacuzzi itself. The circulating pumps are contained within the unit?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Nass. Commissioner Zilsdorf.
I'm just a little confused. My question would probably be for staff. Is this the only property in the area that is on the subzone?
Commissioner Zilsdorf, no. So any of the homes that are in that beachfront zone, which again includes all of the actual beachfront property, so the ones that are actually on the beach directly between the ocean and either Mandalay, Capri, or Marine Way, are considered that subzone.
But is this the only property that is placing jacuzzi on the street side? Is probably my question.
So, Commissioner Zilsdorf, looking at some of the aerials, we don't have details on all of the homes that have rooftop spas, but looking at some of the aerials in that subzone, there's about 4 that we were able to see, just again looking at our GIS aerial imagery, that have spas on the rooftop. Most of them are, again, on that ocean side or kind of more centrally located on the property.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Zilsdorf. Vice Chair Dr. Stewart.
Okay. Have some questions about noise. If I get the applicant or your attorney, whoever wants to talk about it.
Yes, sir.
Yes, I noticed that your pump is 5.96 decibels of noise. And 15 feet away, the attenuation drops it all the way down to 36.1 decibels. And I did the calculations, and you're correct, that's what it is. But the pump is not the only noise that we're concerned about. We're also concerned about when the grandkids come. And I have grandkids, and I know they can be noisy. Do the grandkids come late in the evening, and are they up there, or is this during the day? I'm just trying to get an understanding for noise, because you've been up there for 7 months now, and
grandkids go to bed at 6:30.
Okay.
But with regard to noise, no, we've never had a noise complaint. No one's ever heard anything. We're very, like I said, we're very quiet people. But regardless of whether we have a jacuzzi up there or not, I mean, if the jacuzzi's gone, we'll spend more time with barbecue. We'll have more space. So if it's noise, I think it would be preferred to have the jacuzzi if you didn't want a lot of noise.
And when you talk about a barbecue, on the roof where the jacuzzi is there anything else up there but the jacuzzi? Or are there?
So we have a little pizza oven we put up there, and then we have a little fire pit, and then we have a pool table, ping pong table.
Ping pong table.
Right. Now, are those items towards the ocean side of the roof, or are those closer to the front side?
They're in the center.
In the center, okay.
The only deck is at the street side.
Right,
The
right,
rest is
understand.
roof that's not occupiable.
Right, I'm just trying to get an idea of what goes on and kids and noise and all of that. So I'm just trying to get a feel for what's really the dynamics of what's happening there. That's what I'm trying to get a feel for. Now, for me, I went to Beverly Hills High School for 4 years, and it's primarily Jewish, more than half. And we also had Orthodox Jews there. And so I know the privacy issue, but I also looked up your Religious Institutionalized Persons Act, and I looked at that. And that really deals with temples, and it deals with prisoners that are incarcerated and their religious freedoms. But I don't want to debate that with you here, because that's not so I understand your sensitivity to, your religious beliefs and being modest and so forth. How do I say it? And I remember that from my school days, but I'm just wondering, are we taking it a bit much? But then is this also a personal choice?
It's definitely not a personal choice.
Okay, right, religious, yes.
Right, it's not a personal choice. But what I would say is that the best option for us is to have it on the rooftop. There's no other deed restriction of a house anywhere in Oxnard for a rooftop jacuzzi. So the way we look at this is that we feel it's fair to try to get it removed. It was put there for the wrong reasons, and that's why we're trying to do this. And we feel like for our family, we're just trying to explain why it's important to us. Otherwise, I wouldn't go through all this.
Right, understand. But the deed restriction, and this is my understanding right now, is for the homes that are on the beachfront. You can't have a jacuzzi in the street side of your roof, but you can have one in the middle, and you can have one on the ocean side. Is that my understanding how that works?
I think that was a little bit of a misunderstanding in the answer from staff. The
Okay,
condition that we're asking to remove prohibits a spa on the rooftop of this house.
Right.
Front, back, or middle. Okay, this house cannot have a spa on the rooftop. That's the condition. And we're asking for that condition to be removed. Condition 65 doesn't say reconstruct your house and you can put it on the front.
Let me consult with staff 1 moment. Is that the case then? I mean, we can't do anything now because the house is built, but we say that this is the only house, but I'm trying to get an understanding of if it had been put in the middle or put in the ocean side, this would have been acceptable practice for those homes on the beachfront.
So Vice Chair Dr. Stewart, as it relates to this house, the condition as it currently is written wouldn't allow it anywhere on the rooftop.
Okay.
But also just to clarify, it is not a condition that applies across all the properties there. This was, again, as we previously mentioned, an agreement that was reached between the neighbor and the developer at this time. But this condition is not a standard condition which we would place on other properties in that subzone.
Thank you for that clarification. Thank you.
Mr. Stewart,
Yes.
under RLUIPA, and this was in my letter, one sentence. What it prohibits is local government agencies from imposing or implementing land use regulations, like a condition of approval, which burden religious exercise unless the imposition of the burden is demonstrated to be in furtherance of a compelling government interest and the least restrictive means of furthering that interest. So if you are going to burden the religious practice, it has to be compelling that this house not have a rooftop spa when every other house can have one, and the least restrictive to deal with whatever compelling issue you're dealing with. So that's the rule. And I didn't go through all that, but I was in the letter that I wrote. So that's the issue of whether of burdening, but we believe this is a burden on religious practice. It is not addressing a compelling interest because it's not imposed on anybody else, and it's not the least restrictive way of imposing the condition. The condition would be there because of noise or privacy, site privacy by other properties, which we don't believe that there's really any evidence that that's the case. So anyway, I just wanted to clarify what that argument is.
Appreciate that.
And they did the federal government did lump together religious institutes with the rights of prisoners in jail. So
right.
it's all one act.
I read it, and I looked at your citations and read those too, but okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Dr. Stewart. Commissioner Nash.
Thank you, Chair. Well, this raises a fascinating issue in that Condition 65 might be clumsy and poorly written. If we look at the roof in its totality, we can divide it into thirds, I would suggest. The street side, the middle, and the beach side. Is there anything prohibiting us from rewording the Condition 65 that would allow a spa in either the middle third or the beachside third if the rooftop architecture can accommodate such a placement?
So Commissioner Nash, because the house is already existing, the roof in that location would not be able to accommodate it. As we previously mentioned, the spa cannot exceed the maximum height of the structure, or that would be allowed in that zone. So if they did put it on the other side, due to the fact that the roof in that area is higher, that would exceed the maximum height limit. So they would need to essentially reconstruct the home in order to allow for the deck to extend on the other parts of the building.
Due to the pre-existing condition of the current roof, we could not allow the placement of the jacuzzi in those two, in the middle third or the beachside third, correct?
Commissioner Nash, not without significant reconstruction by the applicant. And I believe we have the presentation that was in the packet here that might have some imagery that might be able to help explain kind of the locations on the roof. I'm not sure if we could have Diego pull that up if it's okay with the chair. That will have some of that imagery that's in the packet.
Is this something?
Without objection, you can, if Commissioner Nash still wants it. Thanks.
Is this something that can be discussed between the applicant and the planning department to allow a different placement of the, because you can always reinforce the roof or, find other ways to accommodate a jacuzzi. You throw enough money at the problem, I assume, and you can solve just about anything. So that would be my question, because I'm interested in how we can move forward, by accommodating the needs of the neighbor and accommodating certainly the needs of the homeowner.
So, Commissioner Nash, as it relates to that, obviously we would have to defer to the homeowner. Their current request is to allow the rooftop spa in the existing rooftop deck area. Obviously, the applicant would be able to make the request. It would need to come back before the commission as part of a coastal development permit amendment, which would include changes to the actual house itself. But there would be nothing that would prohibit them from doing so.
Okay, can Mr. Mandelbaum come to the mic? Is this something you have any interest in, or is it kind of an all or nothing situation for you?
No, I mean, I'm not a contractor, but you'd probably have to chop off the roof of the house and bring the whole house down. I don't think there's any option to do that. I mean, but just understand there. And we showed you some pictures. There are other houses that have street-side jacuzzis in our neighborhood. So it exists. And there are houses that have street-side balconies, and we showed pictures of those as well. And they could place a jacuzzi because there's no restriction. So that's our problem. That's why we feel it's unfair. It's because
I'm just trying to find a way forward.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you,
The
Commissioner.
contractor is here if you wanted to get further into the details of it, but Mr. Bandenbaum and I are not expert enough to tell you exactly how you would reconstruct the house to accommodate that.
Well, this would be something that the homeowner would come before the planning staff and say, is there a way that we can, find a solution to this problem?
Yeah, physically, I'm not sure. My head goes to, would we need a variance for height because now we're, if we somehow put it on top of the roof that's there, would we now be above? I mean, I'm not sure, but there may be a series of things that would have to occur.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Nash, I don't know if you want to reiterate your question, or Mr. Pearson, what was your comment in regards to question from Commissioner Nash in regards to the image that just came up?
Commissioner Nash, I was just going to bring up the image just to show, it looks like it went away, just to kind of provide a little bit more context for what we're talking about. So that northwest view, that is the beachside view. That lower deck area there was where the spa was permitted to go per the condition. So when we discussed that the spa could not be on the roof, but could be on the beachside front deck, that is that location. So again, that lower deck and that northwest view there. However, the existing rooftop deck does not extend all the way to the beach side. As you can kind of see there, that rooftop there is solid. And then as you get on the southeast side, or the southeast view, that is the street side. The glass railing that is up top, that represents where that deck is. And you can sort of see, that works, right there, that the roof drops down and then comes across. So in this location, the roof would be too high to place a rooftop spa there. And here, again, there it goes. So this area here is the beach side. This area here is the street side, and the deck itself is only located in this location. Once you go, as Mr. Mendelbaum mentioned, the stairs go up to the roof deck from here, but this area here is not accessible to any individuals. It is only that front area here, and then this is the area where the spa is currently located. And I think there might be a...
Okay, thank you very much for that. I just wanted to raise the possibility of finding a solution, so thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pearson. Thank you, Commissioner Nash. I'll ask a few questions at this time, first to staff and then to the applicant. To staff, probably Ms. Gonzalez and Mr. Pearson. The reports for both, well, I guess the decision for the director, and the reports from the staff were, I believe, presented to us. Should the Planning Commission give any more authority to the directors or the staff's recommendation or direction or decision? Does the director's decision to deny make her the authority over the staff's, or in combination with the staff?
So, Chair Rejo, as we mentioned, ultimately staff is the recommendation body. So the decision maker on this project was the community development director. So again, staff is presenting the community development director's recommendation to the commission, and it is ultimately the commission's decision as to whether or not they would decide to, again, go with the appellant's request or continue with the community development director's decision.
Thank you, Mr. Pearson. This has been asked in different ways by at least two commission members. I'll ask it hopefully in a different way. Is the reason for the denial due solely to the spa's location and or visibility?
So, Chair Rejo, It was primarily due to the location of the spa on that front side. So it was not related to the noise issues, which the study showed would not be an issue. It was related to, again, its location on the front side of the property.
Thank you for that. Probably more for Ms. Rozelle, a couple of process questions. If the Planning Commission is tied, what is going to be the default position then?
A tie vote would mean that the director's position stands. So that would be deemed a final action on that part. So 3-3 means that the appeal fails. And in that case, we would deem the director's decision to take effect. Otherwise, of course, if it's a 3-3 and no action, then nothing can happen. So that's our interpretation. That would be deemed a denial.
As a follow-up, does the commission have the ability to continue this hearing to another meeting until a decision is made, or a tie vote is basically a decision already?
If a vote is taken, you have the ability to try another vote, but typically the desire is to get resolution one way or the other versus this being continued.
All right, thank you. If the appeal is approved, is that the motion going to be an intent to approve the appeal, or can we already take action to approving the appeal? Usually when we deny, it's a motion of an intent to deny, and it goes on to another planning commission meeting.
The staff report was drafted for denial. So if there's a desire, if there are four votes tonight to overturn the director's decision, it would need to be a direction to bring back the resolution of overturning it at a subsequent meeting.
Thank you for that, Ms. Rozelle. There was at least one public comment, I'll put it that way. There might have been several that said that the decision by the director was inconsistent and or detrimental. Is that a standard that the Planning Commission should look at? And if so, should it be at the detrimental level or at just the inconsistent level?
Can you restate the question? In essence, are you saying that some of the people who provided testimony indicated that the decision was wrong and you're wanting to know how it should be interpreted? I want to make sure that we're clear.
There are some who said it was inconsistent and some who said it was detrimental for the decision to be made the way it's done. Should that be taken into our consideration in our deliberations, or is that not a consideration?
It is up to the individual commissioners to determine how they weigh any testimony, either given by the applicant or their paid consultants or their lawyer or their friends or supporters, or those who oppose the, who support the director's decision. So I mean, I think you weigh in your discretion that is your decision.
Thank you very much. And I think the last for staff is that it appears, whether rightly or wrongly, that the four major factors by one or both sides is religion, noise, visibility, and location. Given the comments and the staff reports, it appears that Planning Commission should really just be looking at whether the location is in compliance with the permit as made. Is that correct?
So, Vice Chair Chair Orejo, the commission should consider, yes, the location. The noise is regulated within our code, so that would be a consideration. As staff originally put in the report to the director, the information that was provided shows that the noise would not exceed the city's noise regulations, but that would also be part of the consideration. That would be before the commission. Essentially, does the project conform with the City of Oxnard city code?
Then to extend that, how about visibility and religion?
If I can, yes, after the public hearing close, I am prepared to address the issues raised by Mr. Gaines and some of the other people, but we'll wait until the public hearing is closed.
Right. Thank you, Ms. Roselle. For now, my question for the applicant, I try not to repeat a question from a fellow commission member, but I think I almost will. Following up to Commissioner Chavez's question, any member of the applicant team, why did you not request the approval before placing the spa?
Like I mentioned before, when we bought this property, we were very excited. And I'm not a real estate developer or anything fancy with real estate. And we heard about the restriction. At the time, I ordered the jacuzzi before we started pretty much when we started the build, and I really had no place to put it. Our intention was to go through the proper process. I didn't intentionally do it that way. I didn't realize all the implications that as things happened, but that was not our intention. Our intention was to do it right, and that's why we're here.
Thank you, Mr. Reynolds. Appreciate that. I think at this time I have no further questions. I'm looking to Commission. If there's any further, Commissioner Dr. Lopez.
Just two follow-ups to Chair Orejo's question. So, first question: if we end up at a place where, again, it's a tied vote and it is a denial of the appeal, would the family still have the opportunity to appeal it to the Coastal Commission, or would that end it here?
No, we would deem it a denial, so the family, if they choose, would have the opportunity to appeal to Coastal Commission.
So both parties after this would be able to appeal it to the Coastal Commission?
Depending on the decision, yes.
Yeah. And then I very much appreciate the renderings and showing us how the roof dips as it gets closer to the ocean half. And I get that it's not an option to move it to the center of, if we were to divide it and parse it out into threes. In this case, though, is the proposed placement or its current placement on the back side of the front of the house? Meaning, did the family take steps into consideration to accommodate, if you will, and not place it at the front of the house closest to the neighbor's property or on the side? It was taken into consideration and placed on the back side of the front? Correct. Thank you.
If that's all, Commissioner Dr. Lopez. Okay, thank you, Commissioner Dr. Lopez. Seeing no further questions from the commission, I'll ask Madam Secretary if we have any other public comment on this item.
And none.
Thank you very much. The public hearing, we usually have the applicant or appellant responding to public comment. Would you like to do that? If there's no objection, I can give you up to 3 minutes to respond to any public comment. Would you like to?
I apologize for not.
After public comment, we usually have the applicant have the ability to respond to any public comment. Would you like to do so at this time? If there's no objection from the commission, I can give you 3 minutes.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Mr. Chairman, honorable members. The proposed request to allow for a rooftop spa at the front street side of the property is generally not consistent with the existing neighborhood character and be detrimental to the RBF subzone character. That's the finding, that she made one finding, the interim director. Otherwise, that in the negative. She made everything else in the positive. So you have to believe that the facts support that that is the case. And that this one house in the subzone should have a restriction with no spa on the rooftop. Because if a rooftop spa was allowed on this property, that it would be inconsistent with the subzone where every other house can have a rooftop spa. There are rooftop spas, front, back, and middle. There are quite a few street side second story decks above the garage, above. We've provided photos to you that some that have spas, all that can have spas, literally right out at the street, lower down than where we are. So you'd have to find that having this condition on this property is inconsistent with the subzone. When no other property in the subzone is that the case. Condition was put on because an agreement was made when this went through. It was a few years ago. What if it was 10 years ago? What if it was 20 years ago? And then you came in and said, but there really is, and the reason that was given that was that I'm going to see this and they're going to see me. They're going to look in my window. They're going to look in my window is what the claim was, and it's going to be noisy. Those facts are not correct. We now, and even with the short time the house has been there and the spa's been there, we know that. And you heard testimony from all the residents, a number of residents within one or two houses away, closer than this particular, than the complaining neighbor, that they heard nothing. And today, in the presentation from the complaining neighbor, you heard nothing about noise and privacy of people looking in the window, because it's not the issue. The issue now is I got an agreement a few years ago, and therefore we should never change the condition of approval. And what we've come forward with is the proper procedure for changing condition of approval. We've shown that there's no impacts to mitigate. We've shown that it's consistent with the character, and that the finding is incorrect. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. The public hearing is now closed. Is there any closing remarks from staff?
This evening, a number of points have been raised regarding whether the spa should be approved at this time and at this location. In a moment, it's going to be up to the Planning Commission to determine if you want to overturn the decision of the director and approve the rooftop spa. However, I want to make it clear for the record that the Planning Commission, contrary to what Mr. Gaines said, is not legally required to approve this appeal. I'm going to now address the points raised in the applicant's letter, and also address the letter written by the rabbi, because there's some important issues that we need to look at, and pointing out some inconsistencies. So the first argument that I will address is the claim in Mr. Gaines' letter that there is no nexus between the project and the conditions of approval. So back since the 1970s, the California Supreme Court has held that if a party fails to challenge the validity of a permit condition and accepts the benefits of the permit, they have acquiesced to the permit and are bound by its conditions. So in other words, at such time as the property was entitled, the original owner actually agreed to that condition, and then when the Mandelbaums purchased the property, they started construction. So they had the benefit of that permit, so they agreed to be bound by that provision. So that is the process. I could go further, but we've talked a fair amount about that. In addition, the director made findings why she could not make one of the necessary findings for the proposed permit. So this provides a basis, if you desire, to deny the proposed modifications to an existing, already constructed project. This is not a project that is not built. This is built, and in fact, the location where the spa could go is sitting there right now where it could be placed. The second argument is this abuse of discretion to deny it because the request is consistent with the neighborhood and should be approved. As I already stated, the project was originally approved with the prohibition on the rooftop spa, and a location was provided that faced the beach. Because the original owner accepted the condition, he stated so at the hearing, it was recorded against the property, and then the Mandelbaums built the house, so they are bound by the condition. So they are clearly allowed to ask for a modification, but they're not entitled to that because, once again, it's a binding agreement against their property. And as I already mentioned, the director did not make the finding. You could choose to make the finding, but you're not required to. But it's definitely not an abuse of discretion to deny this permit. The next argument Mr. Gaines makes is that the director's denial was arbitrary, not supported by evidence, and illegal. What's kind of fascinating is that as part of preparing for the director's hearing, the Mandelbaums did a drone video that went up and down the beach. And the evidence was that everyone has a rooftop spa. Well, the director indicated at the hearing that no, that's not the case, and the video proved it. So I think that depiction actually provided evidence for her to find this would actually change or could change the subzone. And she may have not walked the streets, but she saw the beautifully shot drone video that was provided to her. So basically there is definitely evidence for that. The next issue is a tough one given what's happening in Israel right now. And when we talk about religion, it's something that is not easy. But the Mandelbaum's attorney raised the issue on the religious practice of upholding the value of modesty, and that a hot tub must be on the roof for privacy purposes, and quoting, as it is only there that it's not visible from the street or the beach. And then because of the substantial similarity, I also want to address the same statements made by the rabbi, who states in his letter dated October 16th, among other things, quote, "Of paramount importance, their spa is discreetly located to remain hidden from public view, including the street and neighboring rooftops, safeguarding their ability to practice their Jewish Orthodox faith with necessary tranquility and reverence," end quote. He then goes on to state that the granting the permit would give the Mandelbaums the quote, "ability to practice their faith unimpeded." And then he goes on to say that this is about being treated fairly and equitably so that they may enjoy their religious freedoms. First, it's important to state for the record that this was not imposed on a particular religious group. When the property was entitled, it was not owned by the Mandelbaums. I don't know the religious faith of the original property owner, but there's no evidence that the prohibition of the rooftop spa is somehow related to the Mandelbaum's Jewish Orthodox faith. That evidence doesn't exist because, of course, they didn't own the property. But as we've talked about before, when they purchased that lot, they knew that restriction applied, and they chose to go forward. They chose to construct. But I want to dive further down because Mr. Gaines has pointed out some of the facts of the Religious Freedom Restoration Act and RLUIPA, which I've been working with for a long time. But the issue is the city's regulations reasonable? So let's look at reasonableness. So first, there is a factual question if a rooftop spa will actually be hidden from public view from neighboring rooftops or even the public street. We've heard testimony that the wall around the perimeter, Joe, I believe it's 42 inches tall. So the spa is 42 inches tall, and based on the pictures that we've seen, this is a big spa. This is a 10-person spa. So we have the question there that when the individuals are entering or exiting the spa, They're climbing up on the spa to get in, they're walking across the deck. Do they have that level of privacy, which is claimed as important? They may not be hidden. There could be the drones that Commissioner Nash talked about, but more realistically, I think that if there's another house next door, being on a rooftop means you can be viewed. So I think it's really a question if that really would provide that. Secondly, if, as the rabbi states, the utmost importance is that the spa is I'm quoting, discreetly hidden from public view, it's not necessary for the spa to be located on the rooftop. In fact, there are other locations on the property now that would ensure that the spa is discreetly hidden from public view. So one example, if the spa is to be hidden from the street and the neighboring rooftops, which is what the rabbi said should happen in his written letter to the commission, the spa can be located on the outdoor deck facing the ocean where it was originally approved. This would provide privacy from the street and from the neighboring rooftops, as the rabbi indicated. And then if the Mandelbaums were concerned about the spa being discreetly hidden from public view, they have the option to place temporary opaque screens around the spa to shield the occupants, or they have the right to apply for more permanent screening to protect the outdoor spa from public view. That is a viable option. And then another option is, if it's to be hidden from public view, the spa could also be located on the first floor living area, directly adjacent to the outdoor patio. So with the addition of a one-way or opaque glass to screen the occupants of the spa from public view, it would provide the privacy which is indicated is necessary. And it would fully address the claimed religious issues by the rabbi and the attorney for the Mandelbaums, including, not limited to, the right to be hidden from public view and, quote, practice their Jewish Orthodox faith with the necessary tranquility and reverence. And then I do need to address, the rabbi raised a lot of issues, and we have the threats of litigation, so I need to go there. So, and what the rabbi said was, quote, with all the conflicts happening around the world, this issue may seem frivolous, but not for the Mandelbaums. This is about being treated fairly and equitably so that they may be able to enjoy their religious freedoms. With all due respect to the rabbi, there is no basis for the rabbi's implied claims that the Mandelbaums are somehow not being treated fairly and that they're somehow not able to enjoy their religious freedoms. I've already gone over the analysis that when this property had the conditions placed on it, it was not owned by, to the best of my knowledge, by a Jewish Orthodox family, and there was no indication that these conditions were for that. We've also talked about how, and they admitted that they purchased this property knowing that there were restrictions on the property, but they elected to go forward with the purchase and knowing that there could not be a spa on the roof. And by starting the construction, knowing the conditions of approval, they legally agreed to this condition. In essence, the Mandelbaums accepted the benefit of the bargain, the right to build a large beachfront home on a prime multi-million-dollar location while knowing they could not have a rooftop spa. But, they broke the rules. They installed a rooftop spa before construction of their home was completed. And when the city inspectors told them the rooftop spa was not allowed, they removed that spa with a crane until they got a certificate of occupancy from the city. And then, while clearly knowing that the spa was not allowed, they put the spa back on the roof in clear violation of a condition of approval. They knew what they were doing, and they chose to break one of the key conditions that's imposed on their property. The Mandelbaums are not victims. They're not being discriminated against. Their religious freedoms have not been violated, and they are not being persecuted. They broke the rules, they got caught, and now they're before you this evening on an appeal of the denial of their coastal development permit. It's now up to the Planning Commission to decide if the Mandelbaums should get their rooftop spa. You can give that if you like, but I want to make it clear, the Mandelbaums are not legally entitled to that rooftop spa, period, end of story. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you very much, Ms. Roselle. If there's no other further comment from staff, we will move on to deliberation.
Chair.
Commissioner Chavez.
So I'll kick off the comments since tonight, there will be no friends, apparently, based off of a lot of the comments that were made this evening. There was comments made about religion. There was comments made about families. There was comments made about the events that are happening across the world. There are comments about common sense. Here's the thing. One comment stood out to me that was made from the applicant team was about, well, the interim community development director didn't bother to take the time to go and walk the neighborhood. Okay. But I can honestly say that the applicant team did not take the time to watch any of the past planning commission meetings and understand that this commission does everything fair and equitable. At least that's what it's been like since I've been on the commission. Even prior commissioners have always done that. The commission has always been made up of minorities and people with a wide range of religious beliefs. But we're hearing today that the city of Oxnard is being unfair to one religious group. This was an agreement that was before our time. The rules were clear. You're not allowed to have a rooftop spa. How that agreement came about had nothing to do with us up here, probably not even the staff that was around, but it was made. The developer at that time, the property owner at that time agreed to it, it went into effect, and it was put into a deed restriction. Now, the comment that was made by the applicant, well, I did not understand what that meant. I recently went out and bought a car. There was a couple of languages in there that I questioned. Why? Because I didn't understand it. I wasn't going to sign for something that I didn't understand. Why wasn't it questioned? What does this deed restriction mean? There was comments made about families. Well, if anyone's ever watched a past planning commission meeting, I have constantly said multiple times that the city of Oxnard has the largest youth population, which means we have tons of families that have tons of small children. But yet, some individuals decided to make the comments, well, are we going to restrict people from allowing their kid to play in backyards? No. I dislike being put into a position where my decision to approve or deny this appeal could be misconstrued as me being against the Jewish religion. Because that is what was presented to us today. It's frustrating as a longtime resident, born and raised in this city, that has small children, being told, essentially, that I have to choose on somebody's religion belief. Put yourselves in our shoes, and how would you feel? There was talks about, well, there's other parts of our state where they have negative history. I completely agree. Tons of areas. We renamed a school in the city of Oxnard because the person that it was named after was a horrible person. So we changed it. Hispanics throughout the southern region and continue to be persecuted on a daily basis. right here in California. I'm not saying that I'm not sympathetic to what's going on in the world, because it breaks my heart every single day to see turmoil for families, for individuals, every single day. But it infuriates me that because somebody wants to take something and make it religious for a recreational use is ridiculous. The questions should have been asked during the time of purchasing. What does this deed restriction mean? But it wasn't. You were excited, as you should be, to purchase a land, to purchase a home, to having the ability to purchase anything is a great feeling, and you should be excited for that. But at the same time, you need to understand what you are signing on to. And clearly, there was a lack of understanding. I'm almost confident that a lot of people can agree with the statement that ignorance is not an excuse. It's what my employer tells me. Multiple employers of mine have told me that. Ignorance is not an excuse. The rules were clear. You're not allowed to have it. You broke those rules. You placed the item in your garage. Then at one point you end up placing the item back on top of the roof. And because you said, well, we're going through this process, so let's go ahead and use it. You filled it up with water and you began using it. There's been other applicants that's come before us and they've said the exact same thing. Well, the decisions were made before us and now we're trying to do things the right way. But the rules were already broken. It's infuriating that my decision today can be ultimately twisted to fit a certain narrative. Because I guarantee you one day, somebody's gonna come back and says, Daniel Chavez Jr., longtime resident of Oxnard, doesn't support or respect other religions. And that's far from the truth. But it doesn't matter, all of our meetings are recorded. All they have to take is a few words, and then now it's a tidbit. The reality is, there's rules in place, and we have to follow them. You may not like the decision, but you have to ask questions when you're unsure about something. And that wasn't done. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Chavez. Commissioner Dr. Lopez.
Thank you. And I have a lot of notes that I kind of was taking throughout the evening here, so I will be referencing my notes, and I hope I don't jump all over the place here, but I think my approach from the hearing and what I took in and what I've been able to digest, was processed a little bit differently, and it might be the Libra in me that always tries to find, fairness and balance in situations. But, just out of the gate with these deliberative thoughts, I do want to thank both sides for acknowledging the great tragedy in the world today. I think it truly paints this as a first world problem in light of the challenges, the heartache, the headache that many families, including many families even here in Oxnard, but really with what we see happening around the world. I consider myself a person of deep sympathy in its many ways, and I think that sympathy just naturally includes or stretches in this case to this family who wants a hot tub. So I'm sympathetic to the appeal that is before us. I appreciate Commissioner Nash who's always trying to make it work and trying to get us to a place of equilibrium, really getting us to a place where we can agree and all feel and walk out of here like we all won. Really, truly win-win-win situation. So thank you for trying to engage in that for all of us again this evening. I think we all take our role very seriously. We take our charge of being good stewards of the public's trust and of the public's land. On my time on this commission, and it's shorter than the time that some of my commissioners up here have served for far longer, but on my time on this commission, we've always centered, if you will, certainly the public safety and enhancing the quality of life for the people, families of Oxnard, and future generations. We also take to heart what neighbors say in their emails and in their public comments, so I certainly do thank everyone who took the time to write in on both sides here. Us as commissioners do take the time to read each email and each piece of correspondence that is shared with us. It's difficult sometimes when things are handed to us as we are taking our seats. To try and make sense of what was put before us, and we did receive a couple of additional letters and it looks like printouts and pictures for us to consider as a part of this hearing. But we also take to heart what neighbors say. And so this commission, and I think 4 of us were here during the time, we had denied an applicant for one of our cannabis permits in this neighborhood because we took what the neighbors said into consideration. And we saw that then really take off on social media and in conversations, and it quickly just took on a life of its own where there was misinformation, there was certainly misunderstanding, and at the end of the day, we as commissioners and as people were unfairly attacked. And I only share all that to really center this hearing, to center this dispute. But I appreciate the sentiments, the time, certainly the concerns that were expressed by folks on both sides. I appreciated the applicant saying that they understood the deed restriction, but that they intended to engage in the process and appeal, which is where we're at tonight. To Ms. Delaney and some of the other public speakers this morning, or this evening, I should say. I know, we might be here tomorrow. But to Ms. Delaney and some of the other public speakers, I do want to say that I see you, I feel you, and I hear you. I believe you engaged in good faith over the years. You certainly have a complete record, and I thank you for taking the time to compile that. And as the kids say nowadays, you certainly have the receipts. And I did take the time to look at each item as well as each attachment that was referenced to really see where things were grounded. Let's see. It seems like your communication with the previous owner was always cordial from the record. I'm not sure what happened, but something clearly has happened where the communications went sideways and are no longer cordial. On the noise concern, it is something that we, as a city and as a commission, have heard before, certainly with the ordinance that was adopted by the city on the short-term rentals. That was a big concern that was discussed and debated exhaustively at the time. And I'll say, as someone who lives not far, certainly across Harbor Boulevard and across the harbor itself, at night, even with windows and doors closed, what I hear at night are the thunderous crashing waves. And I'm further from the homes, that are across or that are literally on the sand here. I think we provided a fair hearing this evening. We are all attentively and carefully listening, and I just don't see how anyone will be able to say or argue, or anyone watching at home or watching the video in the future say that we weren't fair. I have reassurance that both parties have appealable rights after tonight's decision. And from my experience, if it was to go to the Coastal Commission, they are amongst the most deliberate and critical. I always take staff recommendations to heart. It is who the city has that was trained and studied urban planning, city and regional planning, and public policy. And this condition feels like it was very carefully crafted and tailored by each party, including the previous owner. And now the applicant is doing what they intended to do, which is rightfully here with the appeal. I take, again, to heart what those residents say, because I think we all strive, and I think all would hope that we would all want to be good neighbors, right? And I think it's what we would wish for other parts of the world also, just to be good neighbors. All things considered, I'm having a very difficult time digesting how this very carefully crafted agreement came to be. It is, as Mr. Roselle said, so rare that he has never come across a situation like this. And so it's not easy for us. I feel like, we're hearing a divorce of sorts, not to downplay the situation, but I'm put in a situation where I feel one side will be terribly let down this evening, and that's not a comfortable place for any of us up here this evening. And so I am certainly interested in what the other commissioners have to say, how they've digested the information before us tonight, and I hope that we do not ultimately land on a 3-3, which and we don't know where the tea leaves are here. But again, I feel a little bit more comfortable knowing that both sides will have and reserve appealable rights after tonight still. So that's what I wanted to get off my chest this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Dr. Lopez. Any others from the commission? Commissioner Nash.
Thank you, Chair. And great comments by my colleagues. They are so appreciated and so true that I should really just be quiet at this point and let their words stand. But of course, I can't do that. So this touches upon so many issues, and that is the fascinating aspect of serving on the Planning Commission. Tonight, we were asked to consider religious freedom, property rights, really the legality and the enforcement of contracts, conflicts between neighbors, privacy, and I'm sure I'm missing a few. I cannot escape this basic tenet of tonight's issue, and that is, to quote from a response that staff gave me on one of my questions, in regards to conditions 65 and 66, the developer agreed to the condition. So the condition was added to the conditions of approval. That is the bottom line, if you will. And everything else is extraneous. So I have no idea how the Coastal Commission would consider the inevitable appeal. And I do hope that the applicant chooses to appeal this, because it raises a lot of issues, and a lot of issues that are somewhat murky. We can talk about what exactly the impairment of the integrity and character of a subzone means. I don't think I could define that for anybody. So that is certainly an issue. But to me, that's a secondary issue because of that initial agreement between the developer and the city to accept that condition. So at this point, I would support staff's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Nash. Commissioner Zilsdorf.
All right. Normally I don't say much. I'm the new kid in the block. But I would like to thank all my colleagues as well. They've been they ask the right questions. They always have the city of Oxnard's residents in mind. And I agree with, Commissioner Nash here, Commissioner Chavez, and Commissioner Lopez, what they said about, Dr. Lopez, about what they said about pretty much everything. It's like the restriction, it's like the word in itself is a flag already to me. If I see that on any contract, I would be like terrified, first of all. But my husband's a teacher at the local high school here for 29 years, and he always tells me, we are forever learners. And I found this true tonight. I learned so much just by listening, and thank you everybody also who submitted their comments and made their presentations tonight, because it's truly an eye-opener for everybody. But this property, the owners knew when they bought the property that they're bound by certain conditions just because of the, I'm sure even if you had claimed that you don't know anything about deed restriction, but you are bound to something because of the word restriction. But knowing that, the Mandelbaums knew that this deed restriction is here, and they still went forward to that construction, it's just, to me, it's like breaking the law. So for me, I'm really supporting staff on this condition. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Zilsdorf. Vice Chair Dr. Stewart.
Yes, I just want to thank my fellow commissioners. It's been well said already, so I won't belabor anything. And this is really hard for me because for 7 months, the hot tub has been up there in place, and it appears that there really hasn't been any problems. But I'm reminded of something that, a law enforcement passed, is that at 2 o'clock in the morning, you come down the road, you can see both directions. Do you stop at the stop sign or do you proceed? If you proceed through, you broke the law, but probably no one is harmed and there's not a problem. But that's what I have here. And that is that the conditions were in place before the purchase. You understood what was going on or could have asked questions, I guess I should phrase it that way. And so that's really what's in play here right now. And that is that there was something in place that didn't permit it, and yet you went ahead and did it. And even though it's working, it's still a violation of the condition. And so that's the problem that I have. And how that could be worked or how we could get around it, as Commissioner Nash has stated. And, I'm still perplexed. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Dr. Stewart. As I look at the recommendation before us to the Planning Commission, I have to ask myself, what are the issues at play, which is the reason for my question. What should we be looking at? What should we give credence, authority? What should we be, in our deliberations, what we should be leaning our opinions or our decision-making on? Just going in regard to at least the four main issues that I see brought up, as I've used in the question before: religion, location, noise, and visibility. I think that the only thing that we should be looking at is location, as prefaced or as explained by staff, that is how the condition of approval was more or less drafted. I wish I could give a half vote. I really would, or a third vote, third yes, third no, third abstain. And I would love to abstain, but in my opinion, my personal opinion is that you should only abstain if you have no opinion. And in this, we have the opposite of that. We have lots of opinions, and we have the information, and we need to make a decision. In regards to the location, maybe I could disagree with the director or the staff. So that's why I was asking what we should give more credence to. And so I'm gonna lay that aside for the moment, because we have in front of us that it was known, even if it wasn't known, which was stated by a couple of people, we're still bound by the restrictions that happen. If you knew the restrictions, then that would conceivably lower the value of the property, and that's more or less known to everyone. The reason I asked the question again after Commissioner Chavez of why didn't you ask for this before you knew multiple times about the restriction? And I honestly wish that you had done that, because I think my decision probably would have been in favor of approving the appeal. But unfortunately, I set my own precedent. When the school came to us, it was in downtown Oxnard. I forgot the exact name, the exact permit, but it was a few months ago. And we can't, in my opinion, we can't be approving something that they knew was wrong, and they still did it, and they came to the Planning Commission. I will give a little credence to Planning Commission, or not credence, some flexibility in terms of that logic that I was outvoted, and even though I voted to deny that permit, it was approved by the Planning Commission. So usually, at the end of my deliberations for any motion, I request Planning Commission to go with my opinion or recommendation. At this time, I don't recommend Planning Commission to follow me, but I'll let them know at this moment that I am in favor of the recommendation as presented to the Planning Commission. Now that we're done with our first round of deliberation, is there any second round or a motion before us from the Planning Commission at this time? Commissioner Dr. Lopez.
I think just to clarify my remarks, because I think I heard them repeated, but I think they were meant in a different outlook or view. I said that it appeared to me that this condition was carefully tailored and crafted by parties, and that in good faith. And when I made reference to the city staff and their recommendation, for me personally, I was referencing the initial staff recommendation. So just to draw the distinction from what I am hearing from the other commissioners. So when I say I'm inclined to support the staff recommendation and my previous statements of acknowledging that it's them who were trained in these areas of urban planning, city and regional planning, and public policy, it is to in reference to the original staff recommendation. That's where I'm at now, and I just wanted to differentiate from what I understand everyone else to be.
Thank you, Commissioner Dr. Lopez. Any others from the Planning Commission? Commissioner Chavez.
Chair, at this time, I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve staff's recommendation denying the appeal and upholding the Community Development Director's denial of planning and zoning permit number 23-400-01, coastal development permit.
It has been moved by Commissioner Chavez, seconded
by Nash.
Seconded by Commissioner Nash to find the project to be statutorily exempt from the requirements of CEQA Guidelines 15270 and adopt a resolution denying the appeal and upholding the Community Development Director's denial of planning and zoning permit number 23-400-01. Is there any further deliberation on the motion? Seeing and hearing none, Madam Secretary, can we have the roll call, please? Oh, are you a question to me or question to staff?
Well, to the chair, maybe.
Okay.
Through the chair to the lawyer.
That's fine. I'll take that as a point of information, and you can take that through the, yes.
Absolutely. So in this case, we have an understanding of what a yes vote would be and a no vote would be, and how that would count towards ultimately the interpretation of a potential, denial or not denial, acceptance of the motion that's been made. Would an abstention change the interpretation of that final determination? So say it was, in this case, well, no, because then there would be a majority regardless if it was 3-2-1. That would still render a majority.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
I answered my own question. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Ms. Rosell. Thank you, Commissioner Dr. Lopez. Is there any deliberation, points of information, parliamentary inquiries? Seeing and hearing none, Madam Secretary, can we have the roll call, please?
Commissioner Chavez,
Aye.
Commissioner Nash,
Aye.
Vice Chair Dr. Stewart,
Aye.
Commissioner Dr. Lopez,
I'll say no.
Commissioner Seelsdorf,
Aye.
Chair Orejo,
Aye.
motion passes.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Appreciate the time from everyone. We'll move on to the next agenda item, or would we like to give a couple minutes for it? Okay. We'll move on to study session reports with none reported on the agenda. We'll move forward with Planning Commission business. Is there any business to report from the Planning Commission? Looking to the dais or my members. Yes, Commissioner Dr. Lopez.
Yeah, I kind of feel like if we, how can I say this? And I'm collecting my thoughts here. I feel that if we stick to our rules, our policies, and our practice, right, like we will stay within reason. And so I feel the minute that we start to make exceptions in processes, that things get a little complicated. So even point example, the hearing today, there was an extension of the time, and then, for the other side, we start to change the rules, right? And think that, I hope this wasn't the case when this application first came through, again, with a very tailor-crafted ordinance, but just for us to, just stay the course and follow our policies as much as we can, so that at the end of the day, it cannot be questioned or challenged of were we fair in our deliberations and our decisions. So that's the only thing I wanted to highlight, noticing that times we veered from our standard processes, and we need to always strive to be fair, equal, and equitable. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Dr. Lopez. Any others from the commission?
Chair.
Commissioner Chavez.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say a couple of comments real quick. Number one, Metrolink is offering free rides to college students with a valid student ID and email address. The second thing that I want to say is thank you to my colleagues. Each of us are up here because we care about the city of Oxnard. Each of us up here do not get paid to be here. Each of us has full-time jobs, families, some even side gigs going on, and then still make time in order to serve our fellow residents. It is oftentimes a thankless job to be up here, but I appreciate each and every one of you. I appreciate our staff, because they're up here with us as well. But I will agree that tonight's meeting is not one that, it was a little bit questionable as far as giving out time. I believe we need to remain on a path and a process that we've built over the years of this is the set time and so be it, and that it's equal to all sides. Hopefully moving forward, as the chair had shared with me, that on the council's committee meetings, our bylaws will be going in for consideration and ultimately up to the city council for a final vote, that those rules are always in place until another commission comes along. I will also say that tonight will be my last planning commission meeting, as I will be submitting my resignation to the city clerk tomorrow morning. The reason for my resignation is not anything bad, but it is solely for the fact that I will also be submitting my papers to run for city council, and I believe it's important to reach out to the community and fully reinvest myself into the community so that they know that I am hearing them and that I am willing to continue the fight for them. I know it's not something that you have to do to run for office, but I believe more time invested in the community is what we need. And because the city of Oxnard is in a better position, listening to our community members so that I understand more fully of what their needs are and how we can continue the growth that we've already established is more important. So I appreciate each and every one of you. I appreciate staff. But again, tonight will be my last meeting, and I will be submitting my letter of resignation tomorrow morning to our city clerk. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Chavez. You know what, I'll say my comments in regards to that one at the end. Vice Chair Dr. Seward.
Yes, I too believe that we should stay on course and stay on track. But, I also am tempered with the fact that we are under the Brown Act. And the Brown Act is about open communication with the public. So I always feel that, as a commission, we should always hear what the public has to say. And if that means extending it, or if somebody didn't complete their idea and needs to be clear, because we're going to make a decision most of the time, and that's it. There is no appeal, and we made a decision. So I'm always concerned with the fact that did we get all the information so we can make a clear decision, and was there something more that needed to be said? And so sometimes, I remember there's been other cases when we had farm workers housing, and the speaker, who is an attorney, I won't name, but, she's going into it and she's explaining it, we're understanding it, and she runs out of time. And we're not done yet. And so we've extended for that because we need to ensure that we do get all the information so that we can make the right decision. So I just say that, it's just a point. But I do agree with you, we should stay on course. We need to stay focused because sometimes we get way out in the weeds. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Dr. Stewart. Commissioner Nash.
Thank you, Chair. First, thank you to Joe and the planning staff for their great responses to my questions. It was probably the best responses I've yet seen in all of my time up here. Thank you to Mr. Rizal for his great summary and rebuttal. That was much appreciated, and it really clarified a lot of things. So thank you for doing that. And Commissioner Chavez, what the heck? Now, Commissioner Chavez and I have sometimes been at loggerheads, which is okay. That's fine because we always had the same goal in mind, and that was the betterment of the city that I know we both love, and the people in it that I know we both love. And I so appreciated his comments tonight about, really kind of the absurdity of saying something was, racially or ethnically or religious, discrimination. If you look at this council, if you look at, this council, right? If you look at this commission, we are Oxnard. This is Oxnard, and that is the beauty of this commission. And I don't think there's a discriminatory bone among all of us, and I'm so grateful for that. So we'll miss you. I've watched you and I've observed you, and you've become so eloquent that it's just incredible. I wish sometimes I had your eloquence and passion. So thank you for your service. You've been a great commissioner. I don't know how we'll replace you, but the Planning Commission goes on, and good luck. And so from all of us, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Nash. Commissioner Zilsarf.
Yes, I was in a leadership class with Commissioner Chavez, so I was in shock, man. So I really appreciate your, all your input and everything that you brought in. And I know I've only been here a year, but I really appreciate everything you do. And thank you so much for everything.
Thank you, Commissioner Zilsdorf. I wasn't planning on saying anything, but of course, Commissioner Chavez, with your comments, I feel like I need to right now. I've loved being able to sit to the left of you since the beginning of my term. So I really appreciate that of actually everyone on the commission, I've known you the longest. And so I will, I'm gonna miss your expertise and, whoever is the longest or one of the longest serving, that institutional knowledge is just so key. I do believe that we do need change, but you are technically the longest consecutive. I'm looking at Vice Chair Stewart and Commissioner Nash when I say consecutive. And so just knowing what has happened, you've obviously referenced previous permits or hearings in regards to making decisions for the future. I've already started doing that just in my couple of years here. And so I think will serve you well wherever you go, especially if it's successful on council. And we look forward to seeing you in the very near future in whatever capacity you may be in. So I appreciate it for me, both personally and professionally. So thank you. If there's no further comments from Planning Commission, we will go on to Community Development staff. Mr. Pearson.
Thank you, Chair Rejo and Commissioners. I guess first off, to echo everyone's comments, thank you for your service, Commissioner Chavez. As I kind of stepped into this role and you were the chair at the time, you definitely helped and kind of put up with me learning the ropes as I kind of stumbled my way through that initial first few months. So definitely appreciate that, and kind of you working with me on that side of things. So again, thank you for your service on that. And kind of going to our normal comments, as actually Commissioner Chavez mentioned, we do have the Planning Commission bylaws that will be going to the Finance and Governance Committee on October 24th. So is that next week? So those will be going there, and then following that, they will be going on to City Council. And also, in terms of our November 4th meeting, we do have 4 items which are currently intended for that meeting. 2 kind of smaller conformity determinations, and then a subdivision and a new gas station project that will be coming before the commission. So with that, that concludes my comments, unless anyone else has anything.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pearson. I'm going to comment on that really quickly in regards to the bylaws. As you may or may not remember from the few of you who were, when we did approve it a couple years ago, that I appreciate that I will be able to speak there, both at the committee and at council, as a representative of the Planning Commission. Usually when we planning commissioners speak to the city council or city committee, we do it in our personal capacity, and so I will try to the best of my ability to reflect opinions and the ones of both the subcommittee bylaws and the planning commission. So thank you for that. With that, if there's no further business, the meeting will be adjourned if there's no objection.